Kidding. Good afternoon to you, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Oh my goodness. Long ways away, man. Just thinking back into school, back in old school days. Way back when you had old consoles versus the new consoles today. Think about this for a second. The evolution of gaming. Think how far we've gone in the last 20, 30, 40 years. Hell, do you remember Sonic the Hedgehog when that first came out?
My God.
It was like
I love Sonic.
It was like, holy crap, this is like the bomb ditty of games. This is like an evolution of 16-bit. But what about its little brother, 8-bit, Mr. Nintendo?
I remember having a Nintendo.
Right.
I had a Nintendo. I had the 64. I remember having to take the cartridges and blowing them, blow the dust out to get them to work.
That was, yeah, you were like the guru of your neighbors. Like if you were to sit there, they're like, my game count, it's not working the cartridge. You just like a harmonica. And then you put that sucker in and you're like, haha, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Which is kind of funny because I had a neighbor named Josh who did that. He did similar things like that. You know, he'd come over. This son of a bitch, even when he would take out you would have the shell. All it took was 2 screws to unscrew. Take the shell off it. You can take out the components of the game itself and put it into another console, another game. So if I had, for example, Super Mario World, or no, that was regular Mario World. I put it in, he took it out, and he would exchange it for something else. So in other words, he was trying to cheat me, which was really irritating. I didn't like that one bit. But think about like the evolution. Do you know Nintendo? Do you know how far back Nintendo's been around?
Oh man, I'm not sure what year it came out, but I remember my mom used to play it. I know my dad would remember what year it came out.
Right. But I mean, Nintendo, the company itself, dates back to the 1800s. Isn't that crazy?
Jeez, I did not know that.
Nintendo started out as making trading cards or just little cards for games and stuff. Like, I'm talking like board games. I'm not talking, games like we have today. But it started off over back in the 1800s, like late 1800s. I couldn't believe that. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So Nintendo's been around forever. Then they started developing things and started becoming electronics and stuff like that, which is a whole different ballgame. But let's talk about the evolution of gaming. Where we start, I guess we can go back to like Atari 2600 days.
Yeah.
Or even in television days, which is even predates the Atari. So you had things basically, from what I have seen and read, where you would post something on your TV, and we're talking like Pong, basically. You would stick it on there, and it was just like a sheet of paper. You would stick it onto your TV screen, and then your counterpart, your friend was with you, would play the one paddle on one side, the other person would play the other paddle, and that was it. That was considered entertainment for the family. I mean, we laugh at it now, but holy hell, that must have been like an amazing technology boost from, back in the days.
I mean, I'm sorry, but being a kid of the 90s, I don't think I would have survived only having Pong on the TV.
I mean, you think about like the infamous joystick controller that we have. We have a controller today that's a lot more
advanced.
It fits in your hand more so than the traditional, like the Atari 2600
the
joystick
with the 2 buttons. And that's what you had.
And that's all you had. You only could do one thing with it. You would control the stick like you would control, I guess, like a plane or a helicopter. You're going like this. Or just like how it is in the arcades, too. But don't get me started on arcades, because I could go on for years about arcades. But the evolution of the games, though, back then, you figure out like how they started out. The 8 bits. I mean, it was hard to do programming, because if you look at like, I remember my cousin, who was like a complete, utter nerd, and bless his heart, he's probably like freaking CEO of some company somewhere out there with computers, I'm sure, that I don't know of. Hey, look, Rich, give me some of that cash, okay?
He just got a shout out.
He just got a shout out by me. And he he would sit there and like he would have he would have like a book, and it was like basically what it was is it was pre-programmed things. You would type in this sentence like WD3A equals 25. I mean, it was like a whole sheet of paper of code lines that there's like 200 lines. And if you did it correctly, without messing it up, if you got all the code properly done after like a half hour typing, maybe, just maybe, like the screen would turn to a different color, it'd fade in, fade out, or flash really fast, and then you would see like a little ball bounce, and that was it. That was friggin' it. You spent a half hour coding that, the screen turning colors, and then a little bouncing ball, and that was it. But see, that was technology back then. That's the shit. Yep. Now, if you fast forward a little bit in time, as time progressed, computer programming it's still a little hard. It's still hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's people that do code all the time. I mean, just look at, if you hit like F5 and then hit inspect, or right click on something and hit inspect, it gives you a shit ton of code.
Yeah.
The same thing was, back then, but technology's got a little bit better, a little bit faster, where you can type in stuff, still manually coding, but then now you have like manpower to do it. But back in the day, 8 bits, Atari 2600, the Atari 5200, which is its bigger brother, supposedly better, better graphics and stuff like this. Then you had there was the Sega Shark, I think it was called. The Sega Genesis, the Sega something I can't think of offhand, but there was like several jumps. But I do remember, stuff like that where it was like, and then you had PlayStation that was competing against Nintendo. Then the boom came. There was that jump from 8-bit to, well, now I can do double the amount of bits. It's like, so 16-bit came around, like, holy shit, this is crazy. Look at the graphics. Yeah. Look at Sonic. He's pixelated, but he's running around in those rings. And if you've ever heard the music, if you still remember the music to this day, I go back and forth with Sonic. I love Sonic. It was really good.
Oh, yeah.
But then you had Nintendo, then its bigger brother, Nintendo 64 comes out. It's like, ho. It's like, God Lord, what was your first console?
First one I can remember. Okay, like I know we had the N64 as a child. I remember that.
Right.
I mean, my family, we've gotten consoles from Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. And the first one I can remember playing was I would play the Marios on N64, and another game that we had for, I'm pretty sure it was for 64, was Duck Hunt. That game was with the little gun and stuff. That, of course, today they would never be able to market that ever again. It's just like, if you recall, you probably don't, but the Megatron, the star, off topic, but Transformers, Megatron turns into a big, I think it's a Magnum gun. I think it's I don't know if it's what kind of gun it is per se, but I think it's a Magnum. And if you were to transform it and put it together, it looks like a real handgun. Of course, today, they always put a little red circle on the front of the barrel to show that it's not, but that's a whole different thing. But Duck Hunt, though, yes, I do recall that. And there's that little laughing little shit. That dog would sit there, it'd laugh at you if you missed. I can't help the duck is going, wham, 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 wham. I'm trying to shoot the thing. But exactly.
But see, that was when it really started getting really interesting. That's when that flip from, okay, we have Nintendo, which has like Ice Climber, has there was so many different games for that console, and Zelda. But then Super Nintendo came out, and like, stuff like that came out, and it was like, that's a whole different ballgame. Nintendo 64. So you went from 16-bit. I don't know if there was a 32-bit. Then it went to 64. And then it's just like,
I'm not sure if there was anything in between the Super and the 64.
That was crazy.
That's something to look up for sure. That's definitely something to, research and
It is definitely.
see.
But think about all the like the coding, everything today. Like we discussed before on this channel, on the podcast, was we were talking about like the graphics, how quickly you can change all the graphics, or you could tweak PC games versus more like console games. But
Yes.
if you think about like all the games today versus the games back then, they were so pixelated, so edges were so sharp and stuff, but we didn't have the technology to do that. We didn't have the technology to say, okay, let's add anti-aliasing. I didn't even know what the hell that was. I'm like, anti means against, doesn't it? Like I'm anti-turkey. I mean, am I right when I say anti? Isn't that like you're against?
Yeah, that's supposed to be something that's.
So why in the hell is it called anti-aliasing, but it makes things look better? Is aliasing defined as sharpness or something? Because I don't know, but
I have no idea.
One of the first games I remember playing was Mario Sunshine, which
oh my god, I love that game.
The music, just as a musician, the music drew me in. Foo.
That was on the GameCube, wasn't it?
Was it the GameCube? That was the 32-bit. So 16-bit was, it went from Super NES, and then Super NES, and then the GameCube, then the Nintendo 64. So I think that was it. I think that was the jump. Remember we were talking about 32-bit.
I remember sitting there in my living room on our big ass TV, and it was a big screen, but it wasn't one of the flat screens that we got today.
It had that big,
bulky backs.
Yeah.
Those tube projector big screens, and we would just every weekend we would sit around and we'd get on the GameCube.
Right.
We'd play Mario Sunshine.
Zelda, yeah.
Playing fucking Mario Brothers, stuff like that. That was our weekend family time.
Getting those stars was such a good feeling when you cleared around. Let's go. You jump in. It's like, whoa, like holy hell, that's great effects. It was one of those awesome, amazing things. And then just the 3D perspective, the perception, you can go around, you can look all the way around you. You weren't just stuck in 2D. Now
it wasn't a fixed focus.
Yes. Now you can actually look around, you can actually do things. Everything looks bigger. It's kind of like life-sized, where you have this big, the mushrooms were bigger, and it looks so interesting.
It gave a whole new, obviously it gave a new dimension to it, because it wasn't just like you're looking at a piece of paper.
Right.
You have the entire world to look at and play through.
Exactly.
And I think that was an amazing jump between the Marios.
Oh, absolutely. And the music just got better and better too. Not just graphically. And talking we're talking the whole package, including like music back then. 8-bit music was kind of, like Battletoads and stuff like this, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff was 8-bit music. Then the jump to 16, so things started getting a little bit better. But see, then when it comes to writing music, files get bigger and bigger too. Like if I orchestrate a song, if I write a song, and if I were to say, okay, I'm going to throw this into a game today, I would have to calculate how many megabytes that's going to take, and then the director or the person then would say, okay, can you cut that short 20 seconds? You have to rework it and stuff like that, which is kind of silly. But can you imagine right now, like if you had the games, what if we were still stuck in 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit? You couldn't play with friends online together, which we'll talk about that shortly too as time progresses. But you didn't have Wi-Fi, you didn't have hardwired connections, you didn't have any of that stuff. Everything was just, you plugged it in and you played with family, and that was it. You played with your friends. You would bet money on them. Oh wait, maybe that was me that did that.
Certain places.
Right. But I mean, there's a lot of games like people like are not familiar with. You may be familiar with some the older school people. They would know like Atari games or in television or even ColecoVision. Oh, there's another one too, ColecoVision. That was a whole different.
Oh
They had
yeah.
all kinds of interesting games, but that was like a kind of a jump, like a competitive race. Sega Shark, I think it was. I think I said that before, but I think that was
Yes.
what it was called. They had that, and then, but like I said, Sonic the Hedgehog was infinitely amazing. It had the rings, the music. I
Yep.
mean, every time you would go around, you spin really fast, and boom, you take off, and it would be like, oh, he's gone. You know,
Yep.
today's stuff.
Each of the consoles, like each of the brands had their own game.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the Sega, you had Sonic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nintendo, you had Mario.
Right.
PlayStation was like Street Fighter or
Oh
Mortal
yeah,
Kombat.
Street Fighter. Yeah.
And then
Mm-hmm.
Xbox was the Halo series, which is still going on today.
Good
So
old
like
Chief.
it all depends on what system you had or wanted.
What console was born in your throat like a silver spoon in a sense?
Exactly.
Do you remember this? Do you remember that? And stuff like that. You know, you had the GTA's and let's
Yeah,
start.
those were mostly PlayStation back in the
Mm-hmm.
older days,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I know because, like I said, my family, we had the GameCube, we had the Genesis when I was really little, we had the GameCube
Yeah.
and N64, we had the original Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we had a variety.
I was always a
Now,
PlayStation fan, but I
I was
turned
about to
in.
say I kind of drew away from Xbox and went more for PlayStation and the Nintendo. And growing up, I really don't care too much for Xbox.
This is why
I,
you and I
I'm
are perfectly good together as hosts and hostesses because I went the opposite way. I was stuck with PlayStation. My cousins had the Xbox, the original 360. I always sat there and said, "Hey, you're not gonna." I love my PlayStation, but then
mhm.
Xbox all of a sudden became more into my life. I was gifted an Xbox 360, and then I said, "Bye, PlayStation." So I was quite the opposite of you.
And see, like growing up, I think what kind of pushed me off of Xbox mostly was my brothers. Okay, when we got the original Xbox, the first game that we got with it was Halo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, in on the Xbox, you can play with like split screen. My brothers, they set up a character. They did not tell me anything about this game. They had been playing it for a while, and I watched them a little bit. And they made me a character, and I
Okay.
was probably like 7, 8 years old. And they had to make it stand out so they knew it was me. So they made it a bright pink.
Okay.
And they they did this strictly so they could get better. They named the
Mm.
character Pink Death. So that way they knew exactly what character to go after, and they would just gang up on me and destroy me. And that kind of like, all right, I'm done with this. Y'all can have the Xbox. I'll stick with the
You
PlayStation.
just went with the PlayStation ever since.
Oh
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
My brothers were kind of pain in the asses when I was growing up.
Aren't they always though? Sibling rivalries will always be a
Yep.
thing. Even it came to playing games, it's like my
Oh
family
yeah.
being a single cacti, growing up and stuff like this. My cousins, my family members, the mob, if you will, of the cacti's.
Yeah.
We would like take back and forth. No, it's my turn. No, it's my turn. And sit there and like I do like what was that called? We do like Double Dragon and stuff like this, or they've had like a whole because see they grew up like I was telling you about, the one that probably has a ton of money now as the CEO.
Mhm.
his family and my cousins, my little cousins and stuff, we were playing these games and stuff. They had all the new stuff.
Yeah.
They had all the new games and all the new trends. As soon as they'd hit the market, that's $200. No problem. There you go. You know, they had it. You know, I grew up in a modest family where Father Cacti was the breadwinner of the family. Traditional stay-at-home mom Cacti. You know, she would stay home and raised me, and she'd, you know, and that was how I lived it. And they would get whatever they could from me. You know, I wasn't a greedy one, or I wasn't whatever. But when it came to like games and stuff like that, I noticed early on, Mother Cacti also had she liked especially the games that had like Mario and stuff like that. Mario Kart was like a big thing in my family. My mom and I would play that like crazy. I'd always remember the haunted one, the level where you're driving around, and there's the rainbow one too, but there was the ghost one.
Rainbow Road is a hard track.
It is. I think it's the hardest one of the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
The music though, but the energy that you got from it, you know, and to this day, you still think about it. There's still a lot of Mario Karts to this day. Even
they just came out with a new one for the Switch not that long ago.
And that's cool because I mean that is back in the older times, and a lot of these next gen, next Ys, next Zs, or whatever they're called, they don't know those games, and those games were effing fun. Okay, Mario Parties. Oh, I used to play that with my ex-girlfriend. Her and she used to whoop my ass on that game. But we would she would have like Mario Party 7 or whatever it was, and we would play that game from like from like evening time to early morning. You know, we'd be up all night playing these games, which is really cool, which I loved. I love games like that where it has playability.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of these games back then had those too. You know, you'd have Contra, you would have Double Dragon, you would have Street Fighter. Street Fighter was really fun.
Street Fighter was amazing.
I mean, it went from from the arcade to port to the you know, the consoles and stuff. But that was a really fun game too. I used to kick some ass on that game. I still can. I bet I still could if I played it today. I don't know if
Let's play it, Cactus.
Oh, it's on like Donkey Kong. Speaking of Donkey Kong, there you go. There's an
That's
oldie.
a good one.
Have you ever played the original Donkey Kong? Like I'm talking where he's at the top of the thing. You're climbing ladders and there's burning barrels that are rolling. And if you take
throwing barrels at you, yeah.
You take the hammer and you nail them and stuff like you've played that game.
You either hit them with the hammer or you jump over them.
And sometimes they would flip. Or they would do the reverse and kill you.
Yep. I remember playing that one.
Did you ever play the original Mario Brothers?
I played the original Mario Brothers. I played the original Mario Brothers when I was younger because my mom absolutely loved Mario when I was a kid.
Right.
That was her time. And I loved the Mario Brothers so much. When I got my Switch, I got a NES and Super NES pack that had the original Mario Brothers.
The one with the POW in the middle and the little ducks, or the turtles. I always call them ducks. I don't know why. And you'd flip them and stuff like that. It was kind of interesting because I remember back in high school, I went to the arcades and I saw that for the first time. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I thought this was pretty cool because they had, of course, you know, later on down the road, they've had Marios and Marios and Marios. But to see the original, because at first I thought it was just faked. I thought somebody threw something together and said, "Aha, this is Mario." But after looking at it, and I looked through my, you know, information, it was the original Mario brothers together. That was the first time you ever see Luigi. You know, you never see Luigi in other games. Yeah, well, except for like Mario, you know, Sunshine and all that stuff. But
the newer end of the games rather than the originals.
Right. Like the original, you don't see him. He's just going after the princess, and that's it. You know, you never. And then Luigi got his own little spin-off Luigi's Mansion.
which was another great game.
I've only played a little bit of it. I never
I
really
loved
got to
that
play it.
game. I loved it.
Mm-mm. I never got to experience it. Did it have bosses and stuff too, or?
It's been a long time since I've played it, but I think there was bosses in it.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
know, like, you had the boo ghosts in it because it was
Oh.
practically the Haunted Mansion, only
Mm-hmm.
with Luigi.
Mm. And
So,
I remember him making that noise, Luigi, or how
yeah.
he always sounded like he's always nervous
Yeah.
compared to his. I guess his bigger brother would be Mario. I guess I don't know who's the oldest. I don't even know if there's a backstory between them.
I
Yeah,
don't either.
who's older, the Mario, or I'm sure somebody could Google that or look that one up down the
Oh,
road.
yeah.
But I've never really played those games. Like I said, Mario parties were my bread and butters. You had all those fun games and stuff like this. So basically, it started becoming where it was like, okay, we have this technology. Let's make this family fun days now
Mm-hmm.
instead of just solos and stuff. And I've said it before on previous shows where you would have to punch in a code that would say, okay, this is level 3-1 or whatever it is. So like if I beat a level, I would have to grab a piece of paper and then look at the screen and then write down this horrific numbered, AC25-38, whatever it is. And then so it's like 16 digits long of alphanumerical to get to like level 3, 4, whatever it is. But nowadays it's like you don't even think twice about it. You save, that's it. You don't even have to worry about it. We've
Oh,
become
yeah.
very lazy when it comes to games nowadays. You know,
Either we've got lazy or the games got better.
touche. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, I think Zelda was the very first game. I think it was the Adventures of Link. It was the golden cartridge that had the very first battery save in it. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have what we have today. It
Yep.
completely revolutionized the whole genre of gaming. It just completely took it accelerated it beyond the stars. And when as soon as you were able to save on the game, they had a little battery pill in it. It has it looks like one of those little watch batteries.
Betters, yep.
Mm-hmm. And it was the very first time you were able to save on a game without worrying about pushing in all these numbers and typing this and that and everything. And it completely took off, and it completely set the bar so high it's infinite of what we have today.
I mean, I remember on the
Mm-hmm.
PlayStation 2, we had the little cartridges
Mm-hmm.
for the saves. You had to make sure that cartridge was plugged in while you were playing. If you didn't, there goes your hours of gaming. And you have to do it all over again. I hated that. I'm so glad that there's saves on the discs now. Like in the actual game, rather than having to plug in a cartridge. And if you lost that cartridge, oh well.
You were out of
There's
luck.
no way you can back it up.
I
You
do.
gotta tear your room apart, tear your living room, couch, everything. You gotta tear it apart to find that cartridge.
I do remember that. Weren't you able to? You had to plug it in into the console itself, or was it in the controller, or was it the empty slot? Because I do remember those.
It
They're
was
about
the
yay
empty
big.
yeah, it was the empty slots underneath the controller plugins
That's right.
on the
That's what it was.
PlayStation.
Yes, that's what it was. And that was again, that was like a whole different like holy crap, this is a moment where again, we don't have to type in a million different combination of numbers and stuff because that was pre-code from the makers.
Yep.
That's how they knew, okay, if I got to this, I wrote this down, that was the code to get to level 3-1 or 3-2 or this boss or that boss. But you're right, I do remember that now. They did have those little things you could buy them, and it would hold so many saves of different games and stuff like that. And
I think it held like 3 to 5 at the very beginning. So it was actually pretty well spaced for the time that it had started.
And it was completely new.
Oh yeah.
It was like a space race, but on consoles. Like, who could do this one better? Well, I can do this one better. I can do it on here now. You could
Mhm.
save it on here, or I think it got to
Oh
the
yeah,
point.
I'll one up you and do it like this.
I think it got to the point too where I think you could save it on the controller too. If I'm not mistaken, there was a little disc that or something similar, like a little cartridge you would insert in the controller itself instead of sticking it into the port of the console. I think you would be able to do it further. I think it just got to the point where everybody was knocking off everybody too.
I mean, think about the way the games themselves have grown. Like
Mhm.
a big one that comes to mind when I'm thinking about growth in games is GTA.
Oh yes.
The graphics have grown, the storylines have grown. It's become such like back in the beginning, it was
Mhm.
an eyesore, and I mean every game's got their glitches, but that game, the like San Andreas,
Mhm.
had some glitches.
I
And then you think about how far it's come from like San Andreas, Vice City, all those up to GTA 5, and it's like GTA has come a very, very long way.
It has expanded dramatically. I never played the only GTA I ever for the first. I remember seeing Vice. I remember seeing all that, but I never ever got to play the original. I played the GTA 4. In fact, when I throw a commercial, when I do a 30-second commercial, you'll see briefly a video segment of the
Mhm.
commercial where it shows that I'm shooting a rocket at these people, and then there's this other part where the guy, my friend at the time, he had his vehicle parked and he had like a little piece of fencing. It was making his car shake and stuff. It had lots of glitches in it,
Yeah.
which were super funny and super fun. Where you could
It
sit
made
there.
the game more enjoyable,
Mm-hmm,
but also more rage inducing at the same time.
mm-hmm. Yes, it did. Yes, it did. I remember playing with my friends because we would always go like towards we'd always find the biggest vehicles,
Mhm.
like the trucks and stuff like that. And it was very boxy. I remember the game itself was very linear to a degree where you would just go in these certain directions. That was it. I remember distinctly too, where if you were to blow through red lights on GTA 4, the cops would suddenly just go right after you. Like if you would get pulled over or get shot at almost every time it
Mhm.
would like throw the stars up and you'd be wanted by the
Yep.
cops. GTA 5 came around. It looks like they completely halted all that and said, look, you like going around, you like destroying things, you like doing this stuff. So let's make the whole world a sandbox where you can just destroy like a shit ton of things,
Yeah.
and not so worry about the cops so much unless you shoot one or if they see you within that bubble, their
You rob a
vision.
store,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or if you hear,
something that actually warrants the cops to be called.
but see with like Gran Turismo and all that stuff, I never really played any of those. Of course, I'm not a guy that likes vehicles. I'm not a your.
I growing up, I was always a racer fan. I loved my racing games.
Mm-hmm,
I loved the Need for Speed series,
hmm,
Forza, all of that. My favorite would be the Need for Speed series. My favorite one was Undercover, because you get to race as an undercover cop trying to stop people from racing. It's kind of like contradicting yourself, but
That's interesting.
I loved it.
See, I've never. I now when you put it in that perspective, it kind of lures me in a little bit.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't
And
familiar with.
then and then there was one, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a Need for Speed.
Mhm.
And if somebody knows the name of it, please let me know because I loved it. I'm thinking it was Burnout, but there's this one Need for Speed game where the whole like plot technically of the game is to go around and destroy things
Hmm.
and rack up money destroying things. And I know it's a Need for Speed game because there's a storyline and stuff.
See, I wouldn't know. That to me
I'm gonna
immediately
have to look that up.
you're gonna have to look it up. That kind of sounds like other games that, of course, today we have and stuff. GTA 4 though, that was my really introduction into like the San Andreas kind of
Uh-huh.
environment. And of course, I played GTA 5 with numerous people, and and then when technology, as we keep talking about the evolution of games, there's the other side of the coin, Bunny, where it becomes, oh, well, I can exploit some hacks and stuff into these
Yes.
games.
Oh my god.
And that is something we should talk about as well too. Like some of the first time that I've ever seen any kind of hackers or people who would exploit, ways to do this and stuff was Black Ops 2.
Hmm.
Call of Duty Black Ops 2, I think, was
First person shooters are very well known for being able to have your hacks and your exploits, and at some point in time it at different points during games it
mhm,
makes it to where you don't want to play it anymore. It will
exactly.
make you rage quit so fast.
And that's what
And
got
I've
me.
done it before. I've rage quit so
we,
many games because of hacks.
we won't talk about that. I have never done that before, have I, chat? No, I've never done anything like that where I could think about 5 million games I played.
I
The
was about to
thing
say.
the thing that got to me, I met a lot of cool people. Like when I first started streaming, when I first started playing games as more than just I'll do this for like an hour and then go to watch TV or whatever the case it is, was when I started playing Black Ops 2. And then I started streaming Black Ops 2. I didn't realize how easily people were cracking codes to get into the games to exploit things. I never knew that was feasible because I was playing one lobby and then this person sits there and miraculously had your IP address. Now, today, IP addresses are how people don't know what internet protocol basically it just gives you a certain digits. I think it's like a 9 digit or 12 digit. And it basically gives you a roundabout area, give or take 30 miles or so from your location or from the location of your ISP. It really doesn't home into your house. It doesn't do the stuff like this. At least to my knowledge, it doesn't. So a lot of people back then, though, it was a big scare because people
Yeah.
would sit there and their name, how it says like, Joe Schmo is, as you're loading up, they're waiting for the game to start. There's the lobby, the game lobby where everybody meets up. And then all of a sudden you would see somebody would have like, if you're like, is that my IP address? Or they would change their name on the fly to something else, and it was crazy because I don't know how they did it, but apparently that was a major problem. It still is a big problem from what I've been
Yeah.
told. Now, why people did it, I don't know. Why did I keep playing it on the 360? Because the 360 was my console, but
Eh.
it was it was a good game. It was really good. I met a lot of people. In fact, some of my moderators to this day are from Black Ops Tuesdays. Isn't that weird? It's really
I
weird.
mean, like I said, everyone has their own console choice.
Right.
Mine was not Xbox.
Did you ever
I
come
was,
across any hackers like that? Like, do you remember the very first game
oh
that you
god.
were playing online and somebody did something stupid, like they flew around the map so fast, it was like, holy shit, that is really Sonic the
Okay,
Hedgehog that just flew by you.
I don't remember like the first one, but I was playing Sea of Thieves not that long ago, and like
Matey.
I was playing with a couple friends,
Mm-hmm.
and you know how you have the Reaper ships that have the Reaper treasure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, well we were minding our own, doing our thing, and on the map we see a Reaper ship. Like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we're gonna just, stay away from it. So we go, and we're going to a different, like, port and stuff. And they came, like, you're with the Reaper ships, you're not able to track people down.
Right.
No, they were completely across the map at the bottom left corner, and we were at one of the ports doing our
Mm-hmm.
thing, and they came straight to us. Like, they were tracking us down, and they killed us, sunk our ship, all that fun shit. We respawn. They're still up where they were. We start going, doing our thing. Here they come again. It's like, what the heck? And they used their cannons to throw some of. There was like 5 of them, which you're not supposed to have 5 on
Right.
a ship.
Right. Right. Immediate flags thrown in your head. You're like, okay,
They
this is
threw like
suspect.
2 or 3 people with the cannons onto our ship, and they're killing us. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I come back up, and I kill one of them. Like, not even 2 seconds later, because I killed him, and I start going for the guy in front of me. No one else was on the ship except for me and this other dude and the dude I just killed. I go to start killing this other dude because he started, you know, reloading.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to kill him,
Uh-huh.
and I get killed from behind. I'm like, what the heck? I turn around, and it's the guy I just killed. 2 seconds later, he was already up and on our
Mm.
ship. Like,
Yeah.
how? I saw his soul leave his body.
See, and that's the thing too. Like some of those games, they have exploits. It seems like they have exploits nowadays. Where back when you had the old school games, they didn't really have the coding, and of course, then the online was introduced where I could connect in with you. I can go to
Mm-hmm.
a big cloud. I could connect this person to connect you, connect you, connect you, connect all these people who are from all different parts of the world globally and connect in and play. Now, again, is it I mean, like, does the PC player and consoles, they are two separate entities, but what is your opinion? What is your thoughts about like uh, console players playing with PC players? Because that's becoming more of the norm too. And I kind of have mixed feelings again, like we talked last week about how people with they would have the upper advantages and stuff like that. Like maybe that experience, because when I play Sea of Thieves, I have similar things that happen to me, and they always seem like they're aim bottish too. Like they have the perfect
Oh God,
aim.
yes.
Like I would be underwater, I'm strafing left or right or trying to strafe, and I'm doing this on a controller, not on PC, and yet I'm still getting my ass shot like that. Like instant headshot kills me instantly. Then of course, the little punk runs his mouth like, I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. But see, I kind of miss the days where it was kind of more innocent. It was really cool to play with your friends. But then kind of like as I mentioned about Black Ops 2, it's starting to get to the point where people just started exploiting the games. And these
Mm-hmm.
big companies now that make manufacturers like Black Ops series, they really don't worry about those older games nowadays. It's like, okay, I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Windows XP is, or Windows 7, Windows 8 is like gone. You don't even hear
Yeah.
about it. If you have a Windows 8 computer at home, I'm sorry to hear that. But if you still have it, or if grandma still has one, they're not updating them anymore. It got to the
Yeah.
point where it stopped updating, and that's when I got my old PC, my old laptop was like the first time I ever saw Windows 10 or whatever it was. I was like, what the hell is this? But it was just the evolution of games from what they had until what they have now. It's like night and day. It really is. Like programs, the programming of it, and games have gotten bigger and
Mm-hmm.
bigger.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about the other day how GTA 5 is like 100 gigs.
Oh God, yes. It is a big game.
I mean, if you were to say just even 6, 7 years ago, a game that is like 100 gigs you'd be out of here. You'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? 100
Exactly.
gigs? Because even 100 megabytes back in the day was huge. You know,
So yeah.
it's like, holy crap. And now you have games that are 20. I remember some games were like 20 gigs. It was like, oh my God, on the Xbox 360. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I literally could only have like 2 or 3 games tops
Oh yes. And it would take
downloaded.
forever to install.
Oh, it would take forever. It would
And
take
then
forever.
nowadays, 100 gig game installs in like an hour.
Which is really weird because it's like, honestly, it's like I've had the same ISP for many of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why now it's like suddenly boosted the speed. You know, I mean, I've had the same plan and everything, but it seems like the same plan is different than it was 5 years ago. But hell if I know. But these games, and not only they're getting bigger,
Yeah.
they take longer to load.
Mm-hmm.
Just like one game I play in particular, where it takes like it takes a good 3, 4, 5 minutes just to get into the game anymore. I know it's the unstable version, but
Yeah.
still.
But we'll just that one we'll have to wait and see how it is when it goes live, which is only 10 days from now.
10 days from now.
Hoping that it starts, loading quicker.
Mm-hmm.
There's not as many bugs,
Right.
We'll just have to wait on that one and see how it goes. But it's a great game regardless.
Another thing too about bugs and stuff that you mentioned, the old school games, I'm talking games that are pre I can join you online kind of games. I'm talking like 2000, 2005 games. They didn't have as many bugs. They did have bugs, but if you notice, they didn't really have as much bugs or glitches in the games. I mean, there was some games where you could go under the ground, or I could literally go in Mario and I could warp to like level 7 and stuff like that, which is understandable. But I mean, do you think it's purposely done? Do you think that the manufacturers today do that on purpose so that way it gives them more workflow? Like, so that way they can make more money into it? Like, say, if I was a dev and I was working with Joe Schmo, who works with, the bugs and glitches of the game, but what if they needed some extra cash? Be like, okay, I'm going to leave this bug in here. Or is it just because
so I can work on it later?
Or is it because of the fact that the games are so massively big, so massively produced, so fast that they meet production line deadlines and guidelines and stuff like this, and they kind of, oops, I didn't see that kind of a moment.
Yeah.
And now I have to
that
fill
could
it
be a
in.
big possibility too. Because, like you said, these games are massive.
They're huge.
It does take time to work out the bugs. And I mean, yeah, it gives them, it could give them more money and stuff like that. But I honestly think that it's because of how big the games are.
Right.
More so than, how much money can we make off of this bug?
A lot of the old games, they fit literally in a little cartridge, and it would just be 8-bit, 16-bit, whatever the case is. But then there came the Genesis and the PlayStation first game consoles to really have discs, like CDs. That, I mean, they still hold a lot. If you look at some of them, they can hold, I think it's like 700 megabytes or whatever of information. But they weren't story written as much as they are today. There wasn't that much backstory on games back then. Which
it was more just this is what you're supposed to do. And like with Mario, you're supposed to run through, save the princess.
Right.
That was all the backstory.
Right.
And then today you got games like the Halo series where you have a whole damn backstory.
Right.
Or the GTA series.
Oh God,
you have a whole storyline to it.
It makes it, I mean, it really, it wets your mouth. You're like, oh, exciting, because it gives you that backstory that you so crave. But at the same time, like for me, like the other day, last week, I was playing for the first time Resident Evil 6.
God, those games are so good.
I played some of the old Resident Evils, in the past. But for some reason, just like we were talking about, I mean, it's a big game. Not as big as like say Call of Duty Warzone and stuff, which is 100 gigs plus.
Yeah.
But this one was kind of heavy. It was 20, 30 gigs or whatever like that. But you got to think a lot of that stuff is voice acting, voiceovers. Then you have the backstory, which is like, it takes you literally like 15 minutes just to get into the game itself. And you can't fast forward it. You can't move forward with it. You have to actually watch the backstory. So everything now is, it's got to have a backstory. It's kind of like you know, Bunny Fufu. You know, she hopped her way into the garden one day and started eating carrots. And, you know, it's like there's always a backstory of games today versus games back in the old school days where there was just, you plug it in, maybe you'd read some font that said, you know, this is, you know, the year is 2077 and this technology, blah, 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 and stuff like this. And then you go on your mission and do it. But today, everything is so heavily constructed around backstories and about this person or how this person became to be, to the point where it gets kind of nauseating at some points, because it's like, I want to get into the game. I'd love to hear in the backstory. I love hearing all that fun stuff, but now I have to wait like 15 minutes just to get into the game, whereas back then you didn't have any of that stuff. And that's what makes it like totally different than, you know, back in those times. I don't know. I guess it's a plus and a minus.
Everyone's got their opinions on them. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's either yay or nay for some. You know, I like lore. Don't get me wrong. I love lore. I love hearing stuff like that. But then, if you want to talk about lore and stuff like that, like a Skyrim or
God, yes, Skyrim.
Any ESO games, you know, they have all the back. I mean, they're all in books, like a Fallout series. It's all and computers, and a lot of people don't even read that stuff, but yet it's still coded into the game. And then that just takes up space. It takes up more space and space and space. And a lot of people don't like that. They just want to rush through it. They're streamers who play games at an accelerated rate. They want to get start to finish in world record times, but they can't because of some of those games that have the backstories that just fill in that time thing. I don't know. We'll see how that happens. Is that going to be the trend? Is that going to be the future? Are you going to have more backstories? Like it's going to be like a movie versus a game itself? Because that's what it feels like.
I mean, I don't want it to be like a movie, but I do love my backstories and my lore. I definitely want to see more like backstories.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's something that would make me happy, because don't get me wrong, I love playing my games, but without that backstory, it's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of, it's not the same.
How did you survive with the other games prior to the backstory games today? I mean, you know, I could understand it. I'm kind of mixed on it. It's like, okay, it was cool and stuff. You know, I heard about Raccoon City, you know, all this stuff from Resident Evil, because that's where I'm going with this again.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like it's like, okay, he did this, he did that. And it's like, it takes you 15 minutes to get into the game itself. Like, then you have to learn the functions of the game. And that's another thing too about the newer games versus the old games. You just had A, B, and
combinations of buttons and stuff. Back then it was just A.
Yeah. Unless you're doing like Mortal Kombat, like finishing moves, you know, that was fun too. I loved my Mortal Kombats, and
God, yes.
I always remember some of the ABBA left, right, you know, like some of the finishing move, finish him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you say that, who does not know where that's from, right? It's like implanted in your skull, like you just know it. Some of these people today,
it's more muscle memory than actual memory.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's more like keyboard and mouse too, to a degree. That's more muscle memory, you know, forward, backwards, and stuff. Because like I've said before in previous shows, it's like a year ago, if you would have saw me playing any game that was on the PC, you would have laughed your tail off. Your fluffy tail would literally be laughing itself off, because you'd be like, "Oh my god, how can this guy even keep up with me?" It was horrible. I mean, I feel the muscle memory of WASD. It's like I can do this overnight now. I could do it again if I didn't play PC, any PC game for like 6 months, we'll say 3 months conservatively. I could and then get back to it, I'd probably be just like that into it.
Immediately be able to
It's
go
like
right back into it.
it's like riding your bike, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it was with some of those console games too. And
Oh, yes.
Sonic and all the good
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
I bet you I could pick up a controller right now and play some Mario and be perfectly fine.
Wouldn't that be? See, isn't that cool how that works like that? It's like, yeah, the old school games, they were so fun, limited fun, but they were still very, very much fun. At least
Yeah.
I thought it were. You know, they were. Did you ever play Battletoads?
I did not.
You ever play Toe Jam and Earl?
No.
That was Sonic, or that was on the Genesis. I remember that one because the music, you'll have to Google it. The music was actually pretty retro. It was pretty cool. Again, that
I
was
love
like 16-bit music, but it was really good music. You know, a lot of them, and of course the Battletoads, they have the infamous pause menu screen, and it's just like doom 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 ooh ooh it almost reminds me of that one song, "Hooked on a Feeling" in the beginning. You know, "Hooked on a Feeling," where it's like ooga chuga chuga ooga.
Mm-hmm.
But it's catchy, and a lot of people will remember that. There's probably some memes and stuff, or probably some sound bites and stuff from it on YouTube somewhere that somebody's like, "Oh, I can use this," you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun. It was exciting. It was new. I mean, what do you think that's going to happen in the future with this stuff? I mean, we're just going to keep getting to the point where all these games, are they going to get bigger and bigger?
I mean, the possibilities with this stuff is endless.
It's
obviously.
it's infinite.
The more technology improves, the better I think the games and stuff are going to be, and the better, you know, the better the graphics and
Right.
the like the soundtracks, and the better the like saving, since we had an issue with saving.
Right. Oh yeah. Do you think games are going to become like 4K? Like, can you imagine? Like, you could literally see the pimples and indentations of the pores.
I'm pretty sure that's going to be the next thing that's going to happen is 4K video games.
Well, see, here's the problem though, because you know how it was. Everything was getting smaller at the time. Everything wanted to be compact, like MP3 players. You know, the little MP3 players that are non-existent. We'll talk about that later down this later in the show. But things got smaller. Now everything's starting to get bigger again. It's like, what the hell happened? Like, I thought you were getting.
It used to be the smaller the better. Now it's going back to bigger is better.
And games are getting bigger. It's going to get to the point where we're going to have to go back to either getting bigger hard drives or SSDs for these consoles and PC games. Because they're not going to be able to hold 100 gig, 200, 300 gig games.
Yep.
It's going to be terabytes soon. We're now talking 1,000 gig. You know, it's like, holy shit. I mean, how much bigger are these things going to get?
I mean, it all depends.
How much more graphically detailed?
I mean, it can get better graphically.
But that's gonna cost a lot, though. I mean,
I know.
Not only for price points, for price tags itself, but also too for the GPU. You're gonna have to build, because everything it's like a car. You can have an engine, but then you got to have everything else to make the car run itself. So you might have like a beefy, 500 horsepower car, but at the same time, you got to have the frame that can hold this engine. It can hold the speed it can do. You got to have the carburetor,
as well as the transmission.
Exactly. So now you got it's like everything has got to have pieces like to itself. If you have like a terabyte game, now you got to have a space to store it. You got to have the graphics that can hold that process of all that information at once. It's going to be interesting. I could see it down the road, but I don't know how that's going to be. It's going to be coming up here. We're in the second hour. We got some horror stuff to talk about, huh? I'm not talking about ex-girlfriends or boyfriends in the past. I'm talking the genre of horror films like zombies. Zombies.
Kind of a controversial yet universal topic.
Everybody knows about them. Everybody talks about them. Everybody fears them. Everybody wants to be one in Halloween days.
Except for everybody wanting to be one. Because I know I never wanted to be a zombie.
brains.
Mm,
No,
no, none of that.
no, no,
No.
no brains. No.
I know a few people that have no brains, but we're not getting into that. So, zombie movies.
Okay, let's go for these. You know some of them: Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland 1 and 2. I think Day of the Dead is what I was thinking of earlier today, and my brain went, no brains. Okay. For me, I've never really have, and get ready to gasp, I have never really sat down and watched any of these zombie movies. I'm not a big zombie guy. Never have been. People ask me all the time. Okay, I can see by your looks, you're just giving. Spit it out, foo-foo. Well, look at, okay, for my defense, when I played like games, like video games, Black Ops 2, any of the Black Ops series and stuff like that had zombie stuff. A lot of people would ask me, why don't you do into zombie stuff? And I'm like, because it's boring as hell to me. I'm sorry. It's if it's gory. It's just I don't know. It's just not for me. But go ahead and do tell. I want to hear this. I want to see like what are your thoughts about some of these zombie movies and stuff like that? Like your favorite film to start off with. What is that? What would you say?
I mean, it depends. Are you going comedy zombie or are you going
Is there a comedy
horror?
thing of zombies?
Zombieland was a comedy
What?
zombie movie. Yes, it was hilarious. The whole time it's got Jesse Eisenberg, I think it is, and Woody Harrelson.
Oh, okay. See.
And the whole movie, Woody Harrelson is looking for Twinkies.
Not a fan of him too much of his work, but he was good on Cheers.
Some of his movies are hit and miss. I will say that.
That Kingpin or whatever it was, John Goodman.
I like that movie.
Cheesy. But go ahead, continue.
But like I said, it depends. Are you going comedy like Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead? Or are you going, horror? Like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
See, I've never if I had to watch something that would make me laugh, if it was zombie, of course, I don't know. I couldn't. To me, they all had the same premise. You either get bit by something or you're like get hit with lightning or something happens to you catastrophically. You're turned into this zombie. Now you're walking around, your arms flailing like your typical Thriller scene from the late Michael Jackson. And you're hunting down people and stuff like that. And you're getting mowed down by the masses with people with infinite shotgun ammo. Or they cut you in half with big blades. Am I hitting a strike point yet? Or am I
wrong? That's for sure. I mean, but you have different types,
Mm-hmm.
You can, you got the big debate of should zombies walk or should they run? I mean, me personally, I think, if they're dead, but they can walk, I feel like they should be able to run too. They still have that muscle in their leg. They still have enough muscles to hold themselves up.
But
you would think they'd be able to run.
But doesn't that require brains to physically, that motor memory to run or to walk? See, that's the thing too. Now, see, if you want to get realistic, let's throw that butter in there. For like a person, you have to have brains to run or to walk or to even home in on something. Go ahead though. I'm just
okay. Well,
I'm being realism versus the game. The thing itself.
That's a good point. And see, like in the series The Walking Dead, which I've watched all but season 10, and I love that show. I was actually watching it last night. There's an episode where they go to the CDC, and there's only one guy left at the CDC, and he's explaining to them, they were doing testing.
Mm-hmm.
They tested to where, the brain dies, and it shows like the X-ray, and it shows the brain die, and it shows the brainstem come back to life.
Ugh. Okay.
And that's how they reanimate and come back, is through the brainstem. So technically, the brain is not dead
Okay.
in that world of
Mhm.
it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But again, I think, with the brain not being dead, they should be able to run.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, obviously, your motor. If you technically speak, a lot of the brain stem is where a lot of the nerves, a lot of this stuff is actually at.
Yeah.
Like all the main nerves and stuff are in your back of your spine, and they all run up and down the brain, the spinal cord, up into the brain stem itself. So that makes logic. I could see that. I could see that. But then, what do you feel though? What if a lot of these, as I've seen in past in movies, from just the flipping through the dial? Because I can't. I like I said, I've never watched one in from start to finish. Never front to back. Never watched.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it takes a lot of damn bullets to kill one, or at least mow down the masses. It's like if you don't hit him in the head, that's basically just like a haha. You that's a equal, and that's it. You know.
Pretty much. There's posters, there's stickers, there's bumper stickers, there's all sorts of things pertaining to when the zombie apocalypse does happen, if it happens. Rule number 1, aim for the head.
Right. Right.
You can't kill something that's already dead unless you shoot it through the head, because like I said, the brain's not fully dead. You kill the brain, it's done. Rule number 2, double tap. You always want to make sure it's dead, so you always hit it a second time in the head.
It's kind of like how I did in Resident Evil. I did that
Pretty much, yeah.
last week. Double tapped it just to make sure.
Uh-huh. And then, like, you got movies like World War Z, where, they're running. Like, they're fast. And, I mean... It seems like media is going more towards running than just walking zombies.
Now newer movies or newer segments or newer series, I should say, a game or TV series and stuff like that, or Netflix series are doing that, huh?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I tend to agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
If they can walk, they can run. I mean, you see a baby when it starts walking, what's the thing it does right after it starts walking? It starts running, and they run fast.
It's like,
I mean, why would it be any different for a zombie who has died and their brain has come back? What about muscle memory?
I mean, I could see that, and we mentioned that last hour on the last segment about muscle memory and stuff like that. Yeah. So I could see that. That's a good card to throw against, in my defense of not, that's a good defense card. That's good. I never looked at that angle of it. For me, it's always been and as you mentioned about running and stuff, so they're adding more into than what I remember seeing, is where they're just walking around and, like your typical commercial for like a candy commercial for Halloween, where they're just running and just slowly dragging their leg, and stuff like this.
See, zombies have come a long way. Like, they've come a long way from, just the slow and steady. We're gonna get you eventually. To, you've got about 2 seconds to start running, or you're done.
Well, that's interesting.
We can run and jump and all that stuff.
See, now, okay, again, I've never seen stuff like that where their newer model of zombie is. I've always seen the old school version of it where they're dragging around and they're always getting mowed down by the masses. Like if you're in a truck, or if you're in some kind of modified vehicle and you run them over, mow them all down like bowling pins to get to one safety house or a safety whatever it is. I mean, one thing that turns me off too is this, it gets too realistic with gore. I'm not a big gore guy, which is kind of weird from me doing paranormal stuff or stuff like this. I always say I deal with the after. I don't deal with the before
Yeah.
or as it occurs kind of a scenario. I always deal with the afterthought after they're done and passed and stuff.
I mean, I've always been really into like gory horror movies. Like I
Mm-hmm.
love the Saw films. Those were
Oh
gory.
God, no, 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 no. That
I
that
was I
freaked me the hell out. The time I saw that, where they had the lady, I think it was, I think it was the very first one where he had to cut off his own leg or his own
uh-huh.
ankle or
Yep.
something, and then the lady had to stick her arm or hand into this machine, and it would cut off. Oh my God, dude, that
When she reached in to get the syringe and she tried to pull back out and it was just like slicing her arm up. Yeah.
uh
That was the first one.
see, I can't do shit like that. That to me, it freaks me out. I don't know. I've just never been a blood gore kind of guy. I
I've never had a problem with it. I mean, when I was really little I did, but growing up I was just never had a problem with it. So, when it came to like zombie movies and TV shows, I had no problem watching them.
There was a movie. I think it was called like The Neighborhood at the End of the Street or something like that, or Dead End, and there was like two of them. But you may know, I might be totally off on the name, but bear with me. I'll tell you the opening sequence immediately freaked me the hell out. I couldn't watch any of the rest of it. And this is only like the opening scene where there was a person or kind of a creature or whatever it was. It was coming after this person, I think. And the guy literally took an axe and completely chopped it right down the middle, and it just splits open like a banana peel and spreads out like this, and you could see all this intestines, all this shit just flying everywhere. It was so graphic and so realistic. I couldn't watch it. It freaked me the
See,
hell
I
out.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I have an issue with like I'll know what something is,
Mhm.
but then my brain goes and I cannot think of the name.
I don't I think it was something like, because I remember I was at a family member's house watching this, and I literally had to get up, and at the time I smoked cigarettes. I literally went outside. I must have smoked like 3 cigarettes. I did not want to go back in to watch this shit. This scared me. It freaked me out. It was literally, that was the opening scene. They were like walking in the street. The person was saying something or something like that, and this axe or something just came chopping right down. I mean, right down the middle of the person, and they're like this, and then they just like rip right open, and they just fall, and all this gore just pops out like intestines and blood and chunks. Oh, I couldn't handle it, dude. I
I'll
don't.
have to look up the name because I'm pretty sure I know what movie you're talking about. I can't
I
think
want
of
to
the name
say
of it.
it's like The End of the Street. There was two. There was
Hmm.
two of those. Two
See, when you say the end of the street, all I think of
house.
is Last House on the Left.
I think it was the house at the end of the street. It was from 2000 and something. 2012. I think it was what it was. I could be wrong.
I
But
don't know.
there was two. I just remember that very vividly. It scared the hell out of me. Now I remember stuff like horror shows like Tales from the Crypt and stuff like that. I could kind of watch that. It's not really a movie, but
Yeah.
it fits in that same realm though of scary,
Hmm.
kind of like, because they had all these different twists. And well, I don't know what the hell the Tales from the Crypt dude was. Obviously he's a crypt of something, but I would have to look at his backstory. But I mean, like, everybody knows the Day of the Dead. Everybody knows that. Welcome to
Yeah.
Waverly or whatever it says. And I've never watched it because to me, again, it was just like repetitively the same thing over and over and over again.
Hmm.
But so, I mean, like, start me off with your typical, without really mentioning names of movies. Give me an example of, from start to finish, a brief introduction how does it start? How does it like the climax or the beginning, the middle, and the climax? It's like, what
I
is your
mean,
typical
like,
movie, average zombie movie? Does it start off with like there's hordes, they come in, they shoot them, they go in the
I mean,
middle?
to start off, no. To start off, it's just like everything's fine, and then something happens. And
Okay,
then, you know, as it starts getting into the movie or whatnot, you start seeing more and more like mass panic,
okay,
and you get the military vehicles going through smaller towns,
okay,
and then you get like these announcements on the radio, and then everything goes dead, like the radio and stuff, and then you go outside and you look around and there's people in the streets, but they don't look like normal people. They're either walking
hmm.
or they're running around and attacking people.
Now, is it your typical cut, cookie cut kind of movies or series?
I mean,
Because,
most of the time, yes. That's most of the time, that's how it works. It'll start out, everything is fine,
mhm,
and then something tragic happens. Like, okay, I know you said without mentioning anything, but
uh-huh,
I'm gonna go back to The Walking Dead.
okay.
It starts out, everything's fine. The main character and his friend, they're cops, and they're they're doing what cops do. And the main
Right.
character gets injured. He
Okay.
gets shot, and he ends up in the hospital in a coma.
Okay.
While he's in a coma, the world goes to shit. And he wakes up, the hospital is like dead quiet. No one around. He's walking through the halls. He's been in a coma for months, and he's walking around trying to find nurses, trying to find somebody.
Right.
He doesn't find anybody. He finds this door, and it says "Don't open," dead inside, and it's all chained up. And he goes up to it, and he starts hearing like the moans and stuff. He goes outside. The parking lot of the hospital is filled with dead bodies in body bags. There's a helicopter. He finds a bike. He's trying to get back to his house. He sees this walker, is what they call it in the show,
Mhm.
where it's just the top half of the person crawling on the ground. He gets back to his house, or he gets somewhere, and he starts bleeding, and there's two other survivors. This is just the first episode.
Jeez.
The the other two um survivors is a father and a son, and the son smacks the main character in the face with a shovel because he sees the blood. He thinks he's been bit. They bring him inside. He wakes up, and they explain to him what's going on. By the end of the episode, it seems like, he's fully recouped. He went to his house, saw that his wife and son had packed stuff up and left, and now he's off to go find them. That's just the pilot episode.
Now you say this is an episode, so this is a series, a running series.
hmm This series started in 2010.
So let me ask you this: so if do you feel that you have your typical zombies from the 70s or 80s, whatever, like the Night of the Living Dead or whatever it was when it first started out? Do you think Hollywood now has said, okay, look, I can make more doing these kind of films in a series than, say, if I were to take 6 months of filming at a location? I have to do talent scouts, I have location scouts, I have to go to a place, look for this stuff, start doing B-roll films, start doing the segues, start doing all this stuff up.
Excuse me.
Do you think it's better for them now? Do you think Hollywood just said, okay, instead of just making movies, now we can make just more with this series and just continue with it, and that they can continue the story within series, or is the series just broken up a movie, but it's just broken up into weekly or
I mean,
episodes?
I get what you're saying, and I mean, yeah, I think, as a television series,
Mm-hmm.
you have obviously there's going to be more money to spend, but I
Right.
also think there's going to be more money to be made because that first episode
Mm-hmm.
can either make or break a show. It can either really suck someone in and make them want to see what happens next, and then you can make it as long as you want. With a movie, the way I look at it, if it doesn't suck me in the first 10, 15 minutes,
Right.
then I'm just going to turn it off. Because you have to have that where, like, at the beginning, you have to have such a good, like, introduction to it
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
it makes people want to stay.
So do you think a lot of these are too predictable? Like, what the like what you just told me was exactly what I had in my head. Like, okay, it's gonna start like this, everything's all cool and dappy, and then all of a sudden something horrific has happened and it gets announced. So it's like the world of the ending of the world scenario. So you have all these like major catastrophe things happening. I mean, do you think that's really too predictable? Like, okay, this series is going to be like just this series, it's going to be the same.
I mean, yes, I do think they can make it different. I mean,
How would you make it different?
oh god, of course you asked me this. Um, I really don't know because I haven't really thought about it. If you
Well,
give me another week to think about it, I could probably have a whole fucking pilot episode for a new show.
stay tuned for that one, folks. But I mean, as an example, just a short term thought, would you make them the zombies smarter, or would you make them more dumber? If you
I'd
had
probably make them a little bit smarter
okay, so that would give it a
because
little bit
with
more of a twist.
with how quickly it happens with them dying and then reanimating,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there would be a little bit more, like, they haven't been dead long,
Right,
obviously.
right.
It'd be different if they were dead for like 5 years
Mm-hmm.
and then came back, then their brain would be mush.
So why?
But they're only dying and being dead for like 2 hours, if that. I think the longest in like the Walking Dead series was like 7 hours. That's not enough time for you to become like completely mush.
Well, what if you did do that? What if you added that variable into the equation? What if you said, okay, well, this zombies, instead of basing it on a 2 hour block of time, why not make it to where it has a backstory of these zombies that have been forgotten? In other
Mm,
words, they're like the old school zombies where they have been around for like 5 years and they have adapted to change, so they've learned, even though they don't have brain, but they have
mhm.
learned how to do this or how to manipulate things more, so like open doors better or pick locks or do something that the other ones who are brain dead just for the shorter amount of time. See, that'd be a good little movie twist or
See,
a series twist.
that what you just said kind of makes me think of the movie Warm Bodies. It's another zombie movie. It's not a horror zombie movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a comedy, but also, not. But
Comedic.
it shows the viewpoint of one of the zombies, and
Okay.
he has thoughts in his head.
So he's
Like
able to rationalizely think or has some
he
degree of
he,
thinking.
he has he can think to himself. He can't talk,
Hmm.
but throughout the movie, he starts, you know. almost becoming human again, which I think was a great twist.
That's interesting.
Like he meets a girl, he actually starts to fall in love with her. They spend time together. Like he's becoming more and more human throughout the movie, and he's learning. So I think that was a great twist, and that's why when you said that, that's the first thing that popped in my head was, they've done that to a very small degree.
Well, let's expand it. You and I co-direct a movie. We'll hire some celebrities, maybe some B-roll or B stars. Now
Yeah.
we can't afford the A-listers yet.
Yeah, no.
But
Can't afford Johnny Depp yet.
shit. It'd be great. I'd love to have him as a star. But let's do that. I can do lighting. We can do all that fun stuff. We'll do a green screening because I think we know how to do that. Let's do something like that. I'll work behind the camera. I'll do angles and stuff like this. You can write down various points. You can be the director. You can take lead of directing. I'll just be the assistant director, and we'll just make a shitload of money. And that'll be it. We could definitely work that out because I could see things. I could write stuff.
And you can also do the music, so that takes a big chunk of money out right there.
I could exactly. And if I can't write it, I can get a couple people that will help, and I can take the lead on that. Lead director of music, where I could sit there and say, no, don't like it. Change that. That should be an F and D flat.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I think we could really do that. We could hire Panic and some other
more ideas.
I think we could do that. I don't see why we shouldn't be able to. My state, we used to have film production here, but for some odd reason, the governor here decides to cut out the multi millions of dollars that we were getting into the state. But for some reason, my governor decides to say, no, this is not a good idea. We're just going to take out production of movies here because we filmed Transformers. We filmed all kinds of movies here. But I guess 2 governors ago, because they're 4-year stints, decided it was something not investable. So they said, okay, Hollywood, get out of here. Go back to Hollywood, which I think is dumb. But
yeah, that sounds dumb to me. I mean,
you have all this money that can come in. You have all these new eyes that come in. They hire extras.
You can take the filming location and turn it into a tourist attraction.
You literally could.
Because if it's a huge movie like Transformers, I mean, people would pay to go see that area.
Just look at all those backcasts or all those outlots over there in California, also known as Universal Studios, where they have all the streets and stuff like that, where the films were all produced. You have Jim Carrey, you got the Grinch. They got some of the scenes were filmed back then, and they have all that stuff. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it could have been monumental because money was pouring into the state, which is what we desperately need. We need road infrastructure, but that's a whole different topic. But
that's taxpayers' money.
Exactly. The point is when you make a film versus a series, you don't really. When it comes to filming and stuff too, it's the same premise. Directors, multi-producers, executive producers. Executive producers actually have more power so than a lot of the directors. Executive producers are the ones that say, "Hey, look, I'll give you $30 million to invest into this and stuff like this." So they're ponying up their own, or ponying their own money up front to cover costs, which is interesting. So when you see something that says executive producer Joe Schmo, they have put in a lot of money into the production. But I wouldn't mind doing something like that where we could work on or at least see that in Hollywood where it goes back further than just, you said an X amount of hours or a day or 2 or whatever it is. But what about, they've learned things. They've learned to adapt things and to manipulate and to maybe fight back.
Yeah.
What if you had
if you think about it, like I said, The Walking Dead started in 2010. That's 11 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And each season could be a year to 2 years.
Okay.
So, that's 11 years.
How many epies is that? How many episodes? Give or
Um,
take in a season, usual. A normal.
Normally like 16 episodes,
So you figure they're probably
I
filming
think.
6-7 months out of the year.
Oh yeah, they're constantly filming.
So it's a steady
Yeah,
income or steady
it's
flow, basically,
mhm.
So you would think, well, okay, the head of writers, why aren't they thinking of stuff like this? Why aren't they saying, okay, let's think out of the box a little bit further? And I don't know about backstories because there'd be so much with zombies, and the
Mhm.
more or less it's based on the main fighters of these things and stuff like that. The main cast,
The survivors.
the survivors, if you will. Yeah. So
Yep.
there's no real backstory of the. I mean, what if they were obviously they were human? What if they had jobs like 9 to 5?
Mhm.
But you don't know that because you don't know what happened to them. But I think that'd be an interesting scenario. You know, I I don't know. It'd be kind of.
I think that would be a great scenario. Just like make it to where, it's not just like they're walking around aimlessly
Mm-hmm,
for the
mm-hmm.
rest of their, well, undead lives.
One more time. Brains. Sorry.
Yeah, like it I feel like it could go so much further,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and
maybe I
so
would get
much can be
interested.
done
Mm-hmm.
with it that they need to like put on their thinking caps and start, how can we change these movies and TV shows so it's not all the same? So it's not just a horde of zombies is coming and we have to shoot them down or use knives on them or
Yeah, which is totally predictable. Like, okay,
exactly.
and they always seem like they have an infinite amount of bullets to a degree, or they're at the very last few bullets and they don't know what to do, and they always
Yep.
somehow like MacGyver it, where they've suddenly miraculously. I threw MacGyver in there. I don't know if you know anything about a MacGyver, but
Yep. I know what MacGyvering is.
if they did, they develop something or make something out of basic materials, and then they're able to win-win situation with them. I remember some of the movies like I've seen, and this is a good thought too, like going through, like you would only see their arms go through windows or they'd fall from the ceiling and they'd come
Mhm.
at you. Do they do that now? Obviously probably not. They probably, as you were saying, they're more mobile now. They're more walking and some are running and stuff like
Mhm.
this.
I
I,
mean, at some points in times in different movies and shows,
mm-hmm,
yeah, they've got the classic breaking the window and sticking their arms through and
right.
sticking their heads through and falling through the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been done. Come on.
They always seem
Step up
like they're
step
immortal
up to the
too.
table and give us some new ideas.
I mean, what could you possibly do to switch it out? I mean, like I've said, they seem immortal to a point where you have to shoot them in the head to basically get rid of them or decapitate them to finally put them to an end. But if you cut off the arm or whatever, like with an axe, you notice it's like starts to move and grabs the person's ankle and drags them down, and then it's like it's very predictable. Like that's what I feel anyways. And I guess a lot of people could say the same about a horror or action movies where you have the hero comes in, saves the girl at the end of the day, explosions everywhere, there's a bad guy, kills off the bad guy, some explosions again, and there's the
Mhm.
credit roll right there. That's
I
it.
mean I mean, it seems like nowadays a lot of things are predictable. Movies, TV
Yeah.
shows, a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
them. Doesn't matter the genre.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I hate to keep going back to The Walking Dead, but it's one of my favorite zombie series. there there's an episode in season 2 where one of the survivors gets, separated from the group,
Mm-hmm.
and she's out there in the wild all by herself. She's out of bullets, she's got a knife. She's ready to just give up and die. And this one chick comes out of nowhere. She's got a sword rather than a gun. One that's smart because it's quiet. But she has two of the zombies on chains. She's got the bottom jaw cut off so it can't bite her.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's got both their arms cut off. And that the thing with The Walking Dead is if you cover yourself in like the scent of a zombie, they won't attack you. Which is
Okay.
smart.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's nasty the way they have to do it. I think the way she did it was super smart. She's got the two zombies, no arms so they can't grab her or scratch her, no bottom jaw so they can't bite her. So they're just walking around, just looking around, and it covers her scent.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
smart.
Gotcha. See, I meant, okay, gotcha. See, that would be something I would do. If I were stuck in that scenario, my choice of weaponry would be like a katana or something like a sword, like a Japanese sword, samurai sword. Because, number one, it's going to slice right through you like butter.
Yep.
I mean, instant, like, it can be surgically done, just like how you said their arms are gone and the jaws are removed.
The bottom jaw is gone.
Yeah, so either like a nice serrated blade could get but if I had a choice, like if I'm running in and I would seriously, because bullets are gonna eventually run out.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go, if something like that catastrophically happened here right now, number one, there are no gun dealerships anywhere around me, no gun dealers. I don't even know where to begin to get a gun. I wouldn't even know where to begin to get bullets. I think I know of a place that gets bullets, but again, they don't sell the guns themselves. So it's like having a gas can with no gasoline in it. Like, well, you're screwed either one way or the other. So for me, I would go for the old predictable yet old-fashioned style, would be a nice like samurai sword or katana sword, which could be more available, or at least you could find a sword, or I should say you could find a knife or something sharp, at least something sharp in your general store, like a department store or, a warehouse store.
I mean,
which are more common.
Even if you don't have like a gun store, if you go to like down here, there's a lot of Bass Pro shops because we live around a lot of water. Mm-hmm. But you can go in there and you can get like bows and crossbows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know one of the main characters in The Walking Dead. His weapon of choice is a crossbow.
Gotcha.
And I'm pretty sure out of the 147 episodes of The Walking Dead, he has had that crossbow through nearly all of them, if not all of them. And I mean, even that, you're at a distance. If you see, there's a horde coming, everyone has bows and crossbows. Right. Stand up on a hill, mow them down. You can go and collect your ammo. So you don't have to, have bullets, or you don't have to worry about your knife breaking in a sticky situation.
See, that would be the only flaw that I would think of, or it being dull or get dull after a while, because that happens.
Yeah, the arrow tips would get dull. The knives would get dull.
Yeah. I meant like with a sword.
You can take a stone and sharpen it.
That's true. They do have sharpening stones. So I would, so here we go, buddy. Here's my survival. If I were locked in that scenario right now, I would immediately grab the sharpest knives I have.
Yep.
in my kitchen, which
Biggest and the sharpest.
I do have some mean ones. I do have some good ones. I don't have any chef knives, but I have some really good ones. I would take those bad boys. I would find the nearest store or that I could think of that would have kitchen stuff, like knives, forks, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'd look around or as fast as I could, go through there, loot it if I had to. If not, I would leave the money on the cash register, and I would then get either a sharpening stone or as many blades as I could put in my pocket or at least carry.
You
Then
don't, you don't even need a sharpening stone. Go to any store where you can get kitchen stuff. My dad, when I was younger, he used to have this thing that looked like a stick.
uh-huh.
And it was made of metal, and he used to use that to sharpen his blades.
See, where I live
Plus, it
is
could double as a weapon itself.
as a stabby kind of scenario.
Yeah.
But see, for me right now, if I were to walk outside the cardboard box, I would be limited to a couple places, or at least one place I know where they would have kitchen items immediately. If I had the world was falling apart and there's zombies that were wanting to eat my brains, sorry, I would have to go there. But for, as you mentioned earlier about a Bass Pro Shop and stuff, the closest one to me is about 25 miles away. So I would be shit out of luck at that point. So I would have to go to plan B, which it would be to immediately find things that are within my proximity of walking. If I didn't run it, because eventually your gas is going to run out too. So
yeah,
you got to think about stuff like that. What containers can hold gas? Not very many containers can, because gasoline eats through styrofoam. So I can't put a styrofoam cooler and fill that up with it. Just try that experiment at home with nail polish remover. I guarantee it. That styrofoam
will disintegrate.
It turns into gel like slime. It's really cool, but no, it won't work. So you got to think of all those scenarios and stuff. But what would be for you? Like if you were running right now, what would be the first things you would do in a scenario like that? Like the world just all of a sudden around you, your neighbors turn into zombies, which I think half of my freaking neighbors are zombies to begin with.
Half of my county would be. I'd be screwed. But if it was me, obviously, I have my kitchen knives, which I have a really nice knife block set, and it's got a Michael Myers knife in there. That's the first one I'm grabbing.
Jesus. that's
and
good.
Then, well, we've got within walking distance. We don't have much. I mean, it'd take me about an hour, but I could walk from my place to our Walmart.
Okay.
Our Walmart doesn't have much. It's really tiny.
Okay.
But, they've got the outdoor section. They've got knives there. They've got guns there. They've got bows, crossbows, stuff like that. I obviously, me personally, I've always been a fan of like bows. So I'd probably get one of those. Although I know how to shoot guns. I've shot them before. I'm just not a huge fan of them.
I'd prefer, honestly, I think I would prefer bow and arrow, because at least you have the bowstring, which has a higher, it's tougher to do.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what, though, if I had to, instead of loading up my gun, I'm like sitting here struggling now, like, I got to put 6 in the chamber. I could immediately raise his back and at least get an aim where the body part I'm going to shoot at. Or if I have a crossbow, it takes longer for it to snap into place. But man, you're talking, I feel that would be faster. Yeah, a gun the velocity of a bullet traveling damn near the speed of sound.
A lot better than a bow. But if you're in one of those tough spots where you're going to get bit if you load a gun compared to just pulling off your back and pulling the string, I'd rather just pull the string.
I guess you could literally
a lot faster.
I guess you could literally just bop them in the back of the head or the butt of the gun as you're trying to reload the thing, but here's okay. So
But then you run the risk if you're using a revolver, you're loading it and then you lift it up, all the bullets fall out, and then you got to start over.
and then I just brainstormed, Bunny. Not only do you have to worry about all that you just mentioned, which you do, but here's the thing too. Now you have to worry about weather, the environment, because if you get a gun wet and if you get bullets wet, the gun usually won't fire. It gets jammed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not talking gunpowder days like Civil War days, but
yeah, we're not talking about
but it does happen.
Blunderbusses.
Exactly. But you got to remember though, it does happen with bullets and stuff like that. They're not really waterproof. The guns, it gets the chamber gets wet. You're kind of SOL because it needs that fire. It needs that power of that spark. And if you lose the spark, it's just like an engine. It'll just fail. It won't work. But here's my scenario too. Since I live where I live, if I was in a apocalyptic scenario, just like we mentioned, I'd grab all the knives and all the stuff that I could. But see, I don't know if you have the advantage or not. You've mentioned before briefly about water around you. But see, I have major water lakes around me. So if I could, I would directly get to one of those lakes as fast as I could, grab a boat. I think I'd be pretty safe if I'm sitting out in the middle of the water somewhere for a while. The only problem is I would have to figure out, like, I would have to run back onto mainland, to grab supplies, food, etc., etc. But just for a short time, like if I had to run away from, Joe Schmo City to get to Apple City, I could probably make it a lot safer if I were on a boat. So that's what I would do. That would be my smart thinking. I have the luxury of having these humongous lakes around me where I can actually travel and get a boat, and at least stay within 50 yards away from the edge. I think 50 yards, 150 feet would be safe, or even less.
That's a great point. And I'm going back to The Walking Dead. They did a spinoff. They did a spinoff called Fear the Walking Dead. And that series was in California. All that ocean there. Right. They actually tried to do that. And, zombies might not swim, but they ain't gotta breathe.
Ooh.
2, there could be other people on boats that want to steal your shit.
Like pirates, like hoarders and stuff like that. Yes. Okay.
And then you're screwed. If, they come on your ship and they start taking your stuff, you could be screwed.
So I guess the easiest way for me to calculate that synopsis, to add that mechanic into that variable, would be I would have to either keep moving or at least find, get out deep enough in the water, because I know the water drops dramatically once you get from shore. At least it does here, because the depths of the water where I live are thousands of feet deep. So it's pretty, if you fall in there and if you have a concrete on your ankle, you're pretty much SOL. So you're falling to the bottom of the water. But in that scenario, I guess I would look for, God, man, I would do my damnedest to survive and to check and make sure people are not trying to screw me over. And as you mentioned about pirates, they could be just like me. Maybe they're surviving like I am, but they want my stuff. They could kill you, throw you to these zombies.
So that way they have a longer rate of survival.
Right. And
I mean, but then you also got to think about it. What about the places where, like, they don't have stuff like that? Like,
right,
middle of the country,
if you're
water nearby, they don't have like Bass Pro Shops and places that sell all this kind of stuff where, you know, you can get things to make your survival a little bit better.
If I was out in the middle of, say, Kansas, okay, we're talking the middle of the country, out in the middle
Yeah.
of no friggin' where. I mean, that place is flat as the walls around you. Okay, I've never been there, but from what I've been told, people who have visited Kansas, that's how it
Mhm.
is. And you've
Yeah.
seen videos of it. So, in particular, as an example there, first thing I would do if I was in that scenario is I would look for the closest farms around me. Because you got to figure farms, they have some blades and stuff like that. You have like your lawnmowers or even your tractors, they have some kind of blades in front of it or blades on the sides. So I would do is if I had a tractor, like a lawnmower, I'd flip that baby over. If time allowed, I would then remove the blade, the lawnmower blade itself, somehow construct that son of a gun to either have a handle on one end of it, and then I would have and then I would have like pitchforks or stuff like this. And then I would try to either move underground or find like a cave system or something, or above. I would try to go for the hills, at least where I could have visual around me more. Now, I'm not a big fan of mountains and stuff, but I think I would make it an exception of something like this.
I mean, it's not like you need service out there.
Yeah, I mean, we get into
the road comes.
Yeah, you can't call for
You don't need
emergencies.
internet.
Then like a zombie like text you back or something. That'd be kind of interesting. Throw that one in the future.
Another thing, like there's bunkers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you could find one to live in,
but do you? But okay, if I could, I'm sure
like a self-sustaining one
right
where you grow all your food, you have everything you need.
If I had a choice, yes, I would do that. If I lived out in Kansas or something like that, the closest bunkers I think would be tornado shelters, which I could turn into a bunker. But I tell you what though, Bunny, I would not want to stay in Kansas. I would be, there's no place like home. But I mean, I would literally go further west up into. You have Colorado, which bumps into Kansas and all that stuff. I would then go to that direction. At least then I would have. I mean, you got winter. You got snow and stuff, so they might deter maybe a little bit of the zombies. Like it would slow them down. I would hope it would kind of put them freeze in their tracks more or slow them down somehow, somewhere.
I mean, considering the fact that they don't have like a blood flow.
See,
to keep them warm.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm pretty sure they would freeze in the winter.
I would definitely do my damnedest to, if I lived out in the middle of nowhere like that, I would definitely want to get out of that because you're in danger zone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically like the dance floor, it's like they're all going to surround you eventually. So yeah. I would look at, in my scenario, I would definitely look for a more mountainous state or continue going west to where it gets to the point where it gets more barren. Like say the deserts, or not even the desert, but like say like Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico. It's mountainy, but it's at the same time, there's miles.
It's a lot of open land.
Right. There's so much in between that you would be able to see around you, but also it would take them forever to get to you, and you would have that time then to build up your stocks, build up your materials, build up all this stuff. Hopefully, then you would be able to say, okay, well, look, I'm going to be able to fight these sons of guns, etc., etc. Yeah, we'll see. That's what I would do, anyways.
I mean, when it comes to like the films and stuff, yeah. It depends on what you think is practical.
Right.
I mean, I'm hoping to see some more, more practical stuff in the future.
I hope.
And I mean, we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, I mean, it might make me excited about seeing movies like that, but I don't know. Who knows in the future? Maybe I will see a zombie flick. Maybe I'll see a series. People around me don't watch them, so we'll figure that out. We're getting towards the top of the hour here. In the next hour, the last hour of the Megabyte podcast, we're going to be talking about something that's kind of interesting: the death of discs. I'm excited about that. That's a good topic. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. After the break, we'll get into it. Myself and Ms. Bunny Fufu live right here on the Megabyte podcast. Okie dokie. We're on the last hour of the Megabyte podcast show today. And we're talking with Miss Bunny, of course, my co-host, and myself, Cactus. We are here talking about various different topics for you guys. And today, now the topic number 3, the death of discs. That's going to be an interesting conversation piece.
That it is.
I remember discs. I remember having compact discs and listening to my favorite shows, or well, I should say my favorite celebrity artists, if you will, like radio station stuff. But instead of buying the vinyl, you'd be able to buy a CD. And I think everybody out there knows and remembers their first CD. Or
I don't
not.
remember my first CD, but you know.
You got so many of them. That's what it was.
I really did. I had a lot.
But
my CD collection was amazing.
Was it?
It was. I had music from the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, all my favorite bands. Well, I even remember burning my own CDs. And now that is a long time ago.
I do recall doing that stuff too. And it was really cool because you could make your own radio mix of different genres of music. And you could have like Britney Spears, Alabama, Metallica, all on one CD versus buying each one individually. But then it got to the point where it was like, well, okay, well, what the hell happened to them? Like, what?
Right? Like, everything changed.
Like technology,
Everything got more modern.
it snapped its finger and said goodbye. This now we're becoming digital,
Yep.
which is.
Everything is becoming digital.
Do you remember MP3 players? The in
I remember
betweens.
getting my first MP3 player. I got my first MP3 player for Christmas in, I want to say 2005 or 6.
Okay.
And it was just a little white MP3 player that was a USB. You can just plug it straight into the computer and move your songs.
It was basically, yeah, it was really simple as ABC, really simple to do. I remember I had a little MP3 player that I could put right here. I could listen to like a little pocket because I had a shirt that had a little pocket right here. And I could listen to it going for a walk or a brief jog because I don't jog, but I've done some jogging. You would be able to listen to your favorite artists right then and there.
Yep. And you wouldn't have to worry about, your CD player skipping and scratches on CDs. And every time you hit a bump,
it
starts skipping, and that was annoying.
And the bad thing about that too is it not only did it skip, like if you did hit a bump, like if you're driving down the road, you plug in this little cassette tape that would fit into the cassette player, which now is like non-existent in newer cars. You don't even have those or ashtrays. But
my car doesn't even have a CD player anymore. It's a 2020.
Yeah. And the car I have does have a CD player in it, but the digital formatting is so much different. Like I can't like if I were to record my music right now and burn it on a disc, which I can't do because I don't have a CD player in my computer tower, oddly enough. But if I were to buy a said one that I could buy at the store, go to the electronics store, whatever, and buy one, if I were to burn this CD and then try to say, okay, put it into the current CD player in my vehicle, I would not be able to play it because the formatting is different than what it knows to play. It does not update itself, etc., etc. Which is sad because, and then the MP3s, there was that big scandal about, remember the digitaling, you'd be able to download anything for free on those websites. There was a big...
Like LimeWire and Crosswire.
There was a bear one too, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot.
I only used like Frostwire and LimeWire.
I don't remember. You said Frostwire?
Yes. It came after LimeWire.
I do remember LimeWire.
LimeWire started getting, hate and shit because it was not free anymore.
Right. And I do remember, I'm trying to remember if I knew Frost. I know I do remember LimeWire though, because a little lime on it. And there was another one, it was a bear one. And it was the very same thing, basically, where you could download anything you could think of, videos to music to a whole, hell, you could download a whole album of your favorite artist for absolutely free. Then the big boys, the FBI and stuff, started hammering down on these people and said, look, this is illegal. It was kind of like predate DMCAs to a point where...
I mean, if you think about it, back then, no one cared.
Right. And
like the bands didn't care at first and all this.
It was more publicity for them.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember Napster?
Napster, I do, with the little headphone dude. Yeah. That's the one I think
they got shut down.
Yes.
They got sued by Metallica.
That's how it worked. Yes, I do recall now. Yes, they did get...
Before the song even released on the radio, Napster put it on their website. And it was getting downloaded before it was even fully released.
So it got leaked.
Sued the hell out of them, and it caused Napster to go out of business.
So, okay, so that's an interesting thing. I do remember that. I knew there was a big artist that went after them, and I'm glad you refreshed my brains because I remember Napster. Napster was the go-to place to get anything and everything, music. I mean, I loved
Napster. It had anything I could think of.
If you had a CD, boy, you could fill that sucker to the rim of music and whatever else there was. Hell, there was some funny like sound effects. There was like, I think that was the first time I ever heard this Yoda one too, where or Sesame Street. I heard that one too, where it was a drug reference kind of a thing. You probably find that on YouTube or somewhere out there in the world. But it was a funny little skit. So it was like you could find just about any abstract thing, but at the same time, you could find the music.
Yes.
You know, and then I guess as you mentioned, Metallica, the group company or the group Metallica decided to sue them for the copyrights, of course, of their music being played before it actually.
The first DMCA lawsuit.
There you go. And those are not cheap. And that's why I don't understand why people continuously want to use copyrighted materials like that. Because it's not cheap. It is definitely not cheap. You do not want to walk into the courts and say, "Hey, you know, I got a copyright infringement on me," because you will get raked over coals, man. I'm telling you. But see, that's the thing nowadays. You have, fast forward a little bit, you have CDs. Then it became the early marks of digital, which was MP3s, MP3 players, kind of took over. So in the very, very, very beginning, you had audio cassettes, cassette tapes. You had boom boxes from the 80s, those big radios people would carry. At least from what I've seen, like on those cheesy sitcoms from the 80s, that somebody I know who's got blonde hair who would watch some of that stuff because they'd be like, "What the hell is this? What are you watching?" But then they had all those stuff, and then they had the compact discs. But those compact discs still continued on after the music genres, once all that disappeared to MP3s to digital music. But it seemed like the CDs were still slow to mutate over to like console gaming and also PCs, because if you've got a 360 or even hell, even the discs today, I mean, I got discs, and these are games that have discs in them that I still play. What I mean, everything's becoming digital now, but the death of these discs, they're becoming more and more extinct. Video game discs too included, you know.
I mean, not just like video games. DVDs are also becoming a thing of the past.
That is true.
Because now when you go and buy a DVD, you get a digital download. Or you can just go online and buy a digital copy.
That's true. That is true. Like if I were to go to a major website, if I wanted to buy a DVD or any, like if I wanted to buy something for a video game console, I could buy, if I wanted to buy an X amount of gold for a month, I could digitally buy the code for it. I don't even have to have the hard copy of anything of it anymore. So I wonder, why is it? Because it costs to produce? Is it because what you mentioned earlier about the skipping? Because hell, even video games will skip too, or scratch.
You get a scratch, and it's almost like game over. Because
no pun intended.
It'll
played, Bunny. Well played.
It'll start. You'll think it's lag, but it's not. It'll skip a whole section, and you can't move on unless you complete that section. And if you got a scratch on it, that's practically it.
You now have to go and buy a new one.
You either have to go buy a new one or take it to a CD repair shop, which are almost non-existent anymore.
I never could figure those out.
You could see if they could get repaired.
How the hell does...
It's getting to the point where it costs more money to have the discs than it is to just buy the digital. And I mean, it's always been more money to have the discs because, you know, you have to think about the factories that make the discs,
right?
How much they're putting out, as well as how much it costs for supplies and the time going to make them. And then on top of that, you know, you have to pay for the cover of that. And I think that's why brand new games, when they first came out on discs, I think that's why they're so expensive, like $60.
Right.
Some are 80.
Right.
You get the good platinum edition of it. It's like 120. I think that's why they're so expensive when you get the disc, is because you're covering the cost of supplies to make it, the labor to make it, and what's put on it.
I'm not really sure how a disc is made or what a disc is made of, but you are right on the points where it takes, like, say, for example, if you were to burn, but they do it in mass, but we'll just say the average consumer. Like, if I were to burn a CD, or even in this case, it's DVDs, because the games, like we mentioned in our last segment about games and sizes of how they've evolved over time and size wise, how much material it goes in, how long it takes to burn that. Because before, I remember when I burned, hell, even burning my music, like if I were to burn, if I burn 10, 12 tracks so that, Mother Cacti can listen to my music while she's driving down the road, it would take, 20, 30, 40 minutes just to burn 12. It would just be a slow burn. And then it would take, and if you didn't have the right format, then you were screwed again, because then you would have to reformat it, and all. It's just a pain in the ass. But I think today, though, I think the market is where, as you mentioned, it's costing these companies more money than what it's worth.
Yeah.
If they were to say, okay, I'm going to go and burn this CD, or can I give them a digital copy and charge for the same price, where I could just have a computer randomly generate a code and that's it. But what if the code is, you got to run out of codes. Am I right? I mean, maybe there's more codes than people. So say how does that work?
I mean, code, there's millions of different codes, obviously. And all it takes is just reworking of a code to get a different code. So you take those millions of codes and rework them.
Turns into more millions of codes.
That's like, if you just rework 1 million codes one time, that's 2 million codes. So I feel like when it comes to codes, there's like an endless possibility of codes.
So instead of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it could be 1, 2, 4, 3, 5. Yeah. Or 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. So that would be a variant of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But do you think, though, there becomes a point where there's I don't know how many millions of console players, or even, in that scenario, or PC. Well, PC is not even like that. It's all digital cloud. But it's, say, for consoles, do you think digitally, there's going to be like somebody who's in Australia and somebody who's in Chicago? What if they get the same code just out of luck? Because lightning does strike twice. What if that person in Australia and Chicago had the exact same code? What happens then? Do they get rewarded for it? Or maybe they do, and it's the IPs that are changed, that the company says, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Chicago, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Sydney. But their IPs are totally different. They're in a different region. So yeah, we'll allow those two to have the same code. Maybe that's another thing.
Possibility, because no two IP addresses are the same, right?
True. And those always are reset. Once you reset your router, it changes it. Unless it's a static IP, then it doesn't change. But if you have a dynamic, then you're okay.
I think it all depends on, like you said, the IP address being different,
right?
Showing that it's not in the same household. So I don't know. I'm not very good with codes and stuff, but I'm pretty sure, even if there is two of the same, it's going to be different.
It makes you wonder. Yeah, it makes you kind of wonder if you do eventually run out of codes and stuff like this. And basically, the reason why I bring that up is because CDs are like a cookie cutter. Basically, it's like cookie cuttering the same code over and over. So there was no need for digital or
Mhm.
no need for a specific code. Whereas I could, Joe Schmo from Australia could have the exact copy of Chicago,
Mhm.
and the only difference is the region locks, which it's interesting how that works. Region locks globally, I guess, is kind of to prevent people from screwing over the system. Somebody thought outside the box when they thought that.
Yeah.
But now, like, these bigger game, like, okay, so next gen we have Xbox 360, still relied
Yep.
heavily on CDs, which I don't even think you could buy anything digital for that. If the 360 is
I don't
still around,
I don't think so.
I think they
But then again,
discontinued the servers.
I'm not really an Xbox player.
So okay, so then you have the Xbox One, which again still today has the
The disc.
CDs. Right, it
Yeah.
still has discs. You could buy games digitally and CD, because if you go to like your major dealers that are game dealers, they have now where it's less and less. You see the game on the, they have it for sale, but then you open it up and it's actually a digital download versus the CD itself, which is good. Because if you were to go there, buy it, and there's a scratch, well, you're screwed. And if it's a crack, God forbid. That's another thing too about CDs; they crack really easily, and they also chip, or they I don't know how, because you're putting it into the console, unless my console's beating the hell out of the CD
Well, you
inside
gotta
there.
think about it. When it's in the console, it's spinning at a high rate of speed.
It's just like hard disk drives, yeah, which is
It's
basically what it
constantly
is.
spinning. So, even that little bit causes wear and tear.
I've seen some horror videos of people hard disk drives in computers, because a lot of our computers today and also on consoles are solid state drives or SSDs versus hard disk drives. Hard disk drive is just like you just mentioned. It's a spinning drive that has a CD on it that reads the laser, and then the laser the CD spins at a very accelerated rate, and the laser reads it kind of like a record, in a sense, like a record player with a needle reads the grooves which produces the music. Same thing, kind of like that, but where as this spins around, after a while it starts getting all screwed up and it starts getting off its rocker, and that's when the cracks and chips and stuff. Where I've seen these horror videos, short videos, where they show a hard disk drive spinning at an accelerated rate. Of course, it's higher than the 7,200 RPMs, which is quite fast if you think about
Yeah.
it. I mean, that's faster than you drive on the freeway. Next time you go
Oh,
on the
yeah.
freeway, you're doing like 2,400 RPMs at 70 miles per hour. So imagine how fast that disc is spinning, and that pieces break off and it can get into your eyes, into your skin.
Mhm.
Now you have a deadly projectiles flying everywhere. So maybe that's another reason why too, is because we moved on to SSD or solid state drives, which is it reads materials and then erases it. Once it's done, it's erased. Like as
Mhm.
soon as you turn it off, it erased all that cache, that temporary brain, that memory is gone now.
That build up.
Right, because you don't have to defrag like
Mhm.
you would, and that took forever to
I'm
do
sorry,
too.
I haven't heard that word in years.
Defrag, yeah, when you defragged a hard drive, it was literally taking all that information that was burnt on that CD. Now it's turning, it's erasing it, which is kind of weird. And it would show that little graphic where it looks like little, things that would turn red to blue, or so that's another thing too. I think because of the fact that solid state drives are faster, technology has improved on that. That's why we don't need these discs anymore. But like for the new series games though, like you have the Xbox One. Now you have next gen coming in, the Xbox S series, which don't rely on CDs. Do you think it's problematic, or they should move on with those or continue on
I
with digitals?
I mean, yeah, moving on with digital would be great, but you also gotta think, are they backwards compatible? Do you
Mm-hmm.
have to rebuy a game that you already own on a disc in
Right.
order to play that game with the upgraded graphics and
Right.
the better, faster load times and speeds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's something that, you have to put into perspective.
A lot of these
If
games too. Yeah, they're like that. Yep.
like it'd be cool if, they did away with the discs and say Joe Schmo went out and bought a Series S
Mm-hmm.
and it's completely digital. Links up their gamer tag from the 360 or the Xbox One, and it would be cool if all the games that they have installed on their Xbox 360 or One get transferred over to a digital copy
Right.
because they already own those, but they can't put the disc into the console to play it.
True.
I
Very true.
think if they started doing stuff like that, then yeah, do away with the disc. But if you're gonna make it to where it's backwards compatible, you have to put a spot for a disc because those, like the 360 was all disc.
It was. Yep.
Xbox One was mostly disc.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So
And
if you're gonna move it forward, you have to make it to where people can play the games that they already own.
that's true. That's true. The down. Okay, two things. If you remember, like 360, they had two discs usually in each of these sleeves that you got. Like, say for
Mhm.
example, I have Call of Duty Ghosts as a prime example because I know that one so well that I bought it twice because I got to the point where it skipped, it had scratches in it, and it also had a crack in it, which was unplayable. So I had to buy the game again, which was $6 or whatever, but I still bought it. But my point, you have the installation disc and you also had the game disc. So when you first had this game, you had to install disc one, I would say.
Mhm.
Once it was done reading all that information, getting it off there, then it would spit it out and it would say insert disc 2, which would
Yeah.
be the game disc, and then it would read some of that material off it, finalize it, and then you would have to play the game, you would have to keep that in the Xbox itself. So the game
Mhm.
disc would have to stay in it for it to save, etc., etc. Then it got to the point where okay, they don't have the game disc anymore. Where sorry, the one where it had to read the installation disc. Now everything is, as you can see, is from a cloud and is digitally. It says a lot of times of the games I play now, when you first get a game like Ark, as an example, when I got that for the Xbox One, there was no need for the installation disc. It would say online, or it would say something about online download, and then it would read off the game disc itself. So in other words, you would have the
Mhm.
game disc, and then the other material, instead of having an installation disc, it would get it off the internet. So it'd be on the cloud.
Mhm.
So now it looks like we're going towards that direction where there's no more need for these discs. Everything is saved on these clouds that you and I don't see, or it doesn't rain data from what I remember. I don't see any clouds up there, but it makes you wonder where the hell they came up with a cloud.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just call it the void or the wormhole or something? I wonder why they came up with the digital cloud, if you will.
Because it's out there away from everything else where it can be safe.
I guess a cloud is safe, isn't it? Unless it's a tornado.
Yeah.
Unless it's producing hail or, pooping out
Yeah.
frogs or lizards from, because that does happen.
Or a
You've,
hurricane, you know,
you,
that too.
you've heard of that stuff, though.
A
People
little
have,
bit.
yeah. But I mean, like these next gen consoles, would you buy one? Are you intrigued? Are you going
I
to?
mean,
You're a PC player
I'm a PC player,
more than a
but
console, but
yeah, but we were talking about getting the PS5,
mhm.
which is a next gen console. I'm not sure if PlayStation is still sticking with being able to use discs or not. I haven't looked too much into it.
I don't think it is. I think they are, well, two scenarios I've heard. When the Xbox was announced for the series, if you had two options, all digital with no CD slit on it, like you normally find in the Xbox One or PlayStation 4 or whatever. Or you could buy the one with the disc thing on the side, but it was more money. So for X amount more, you could get this, and for without, so one or the other.
Series X versus the Series S.
Is that how it works, or is that two completely different things? I'm not sure.
I think the Series X has the disc drive.
Okay.
And the Series S is completely digital.
Completely digital.
Don't need a disc drive or a disc.
Now they say that those two new gens, the series, you said PlayStation 5, and then the Series X or S is 60 frames versus what the Xbox One is supposedly is 60 or 30 frames, because we're still stuck in 30 frames.
Yeah. I mean, again, frames, the whole frame situation.
Right.
I wish it would be, I mean, I know it's not ever going to be like the PC where the frames adjust to what your screen can handle.
Right.
I wish they would give you the option to adjust your frame rate yourself. Like you could set it at 30 or you could set it at 60 rather than just have one set frame rate.
Now, are 4K TVs, are there refreshes? Are TVs higher than 60 frames? I don't know. My TVs and stuff are 60 to my knowledge.
No, honestly, I know some of the newer TVs, the 4K, the Ultra HD. I would assume that their refresh rate is higher because of how good the graphics are, but I'm not really sure.
There's a true motion or something like that, or real time motion. I forgot what they call it. There's certain I don't know if it's copyright, but trademarked kind of a motion thing where, have you ever noticed, like on some TVs, it looks like the movement looks like you're literally like looking at it in yourself. The movement looks more real, more motion fluid than your typical scenario TV stuff. I don't know, maybe the refresh rates are faster, but there's a good point too. I just seen some people
that would be something to look into.
Maybe the reason why certain people, they give you the option to have a CD and or a cartridge is because there's some people in the world, which this makes sense, and it was brought to my attention that there are people who enjoy physical items or physical objects or physical copies of things. Like we talked about not too long ago in one of our prior episodes in the podcast here, we referred to, like, remember we were talking about E.T., the best game in the world
for the Atari.
If you could find yourself a copy of that, a physical copy of that, it'd be banking pretty good. You can get a good couple, $200-$400 or so just for this little disc. But there are people, and I know family members in my family who are big fanatics of physical items you can touch. Not like Bitcoin, but items you can physically keep as a souvenir or frame it or whatever the case it is. So that's a good theory. That's a good point too. Maybe that's why they're keeping the discs around just enough for people to have those said discs, to have them on display. So when their grandkids, I remember back in the day when there were CDs when I was younger.
Oh my God. That's it. You don't even have to be that old. Right. And some kids don't even know what CDs are.
Exactly.
You mentioned burning a CD, and what year were you born?
I actually do have a CD sleeve thing. You remember those things, right? They were so popular. You can buy
Yeah.
those at Kmart. 100 discs. You can get them at Spencer's, anywhere like that. It would have the sleeves where you could plot all your discs, and you were the cool cat if you had those in your car, driving down the road, and your friends would be like, "Oh my god, you got Metallica! Let's put it on."
Driving down the road. Hey, hand me my CD collection.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You would have this big thing of it.
It's back there underneath the driver's seat. Pass it up. Pick
Exactly.
a disc. We'll pop it in. Yeah.
I still have some of my CDs. In fact, I have some in the car, in the glove box, of my own physical CDs that I burn of my copies of music. So it does take a long time for those to process, but then again, that's another thing too. You got to look at. I mentioned was the coding, the codecs that they
Mhm.
use today are different than the codecs. And I mean, my car isn't that old. It's getting up there. She's a little, she's a little senior citizen, but it's okay. She's up there near Geritol times, but it's okay. She's very reliable, and I knock on wood, never had a problem with her. Except for her muffler fell off one time. That was scary as hell. I hit a railroad tracks. I went like that, and the next thing you know, like, oh my god, I nearly died that day. But the fact is, though, a lot of times now it's like these CDs are becoming more and more extinct. They're becoming more dinosaurs, and
Yeah.
it could be the codecs too, because the codecs that they use today, the formatting, as they call it, the codecs are a lot different. It's like Blu-ray versus traditional DVDs. Blu-rays are completely, you could not say grab a DVD of a Blu-ray, and the one at your house right now, if you have a DVD player that cannot read Blu-ray, you couldn't put it in there and have it read because it's a different codec, different thing. Maybe
I mean,
that's what it is with
with
these.
like the PlayStation 4,
Mm-hmm.
it's a built-in Blu-ray player.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
the thing is, you can still play regular DVDs,
Yeah.
but they won't look as good.
Well, see, I've never been a fan of, okay, I'm going to spend $5-10 more on a Blu-ray versus a regular DVD just so I could see Bruce Willis's nostril hairs in high def. Okay. I'm not that kind. I mean, it may look better, but in reality, the resolution all drops down. All you could have the best DVD, the best Blu-ray, but if your resolution on your TV is 1920 by 1080, that's what it's going to look like. I don't give a. You can polish a turd, it will shimmer, but I mean,
So
if you have a Blu-ray, it still is going to kind of look the same, regardless of how shiny it looks. Is my point, because you can have, if it was a 4K and a Blu-ray, then we're talking, okay, now you'll really see his nostril hairs and beautiful brilliance. But if
every single pore on his nose.
your traditional TV, just like your monitors today, they're still, your monitors are 60 hertz. There's mine can do 72 hertz, which is kind of weird. Never heard of a 72 hertz before. 144,
Yeah.
120. But it's 1920 by 1080, unless you get like a 4K TV, then you're expensive. But I don't know, man. It's like DVDs are, as you mentioned, are more, you see less and less of those. It's just like VHSs and stuff.
I've not seen a VHS tape since Blockbuster
I
went out
have.
of business.
You know where I saw it at?
You have some, don't you?
I saw one at a garage sale like 3 years ago. For real, this lady had them.
The thing is, though, those VHS tapes are probably worth some money.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange how that works?
And think about it. 20, 30 years in the future, CDs are going to be worth a lot of money.
It's going to be really weird. I mean, imagine, like, do you think the game CDs will have value? because it seems like right now, like I mentioned earlier, I bought Call of Duty Ghosts
Mm-hmm.
for like $6-7, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And Black Ops 2, I spent like $2 on, which is absolutely crazy.
I mean, if you are a collector,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the future, it's gonna be worth some money. So starting now, if you start collecting now,
Mm-hmm.
and you get like the whole Call of Duty series for like $30 for all of them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
someone else out there in the future is gonna give you a lot more money. So you're spending a little to
Right.
make a lot.
These people will probably want it pristine though, like not out of the box, sealed to the point where it's like factory sealed. So people get very, when it comes to collectors, they're very, very particular, I guess is a proper word for that.
I
But I
get
could
that.
I could see where you're going though. I mean, your average consumer, your average collector, say you're amateur slash, I'm just breaking into the business of collecting.
Hmm.
Will definitely will say, okay, I'll pay for this. I'll pony up $50 for that disc and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even though it's might have been used, I'll still use that. I could put that on display, etc., etc. So I can see that there is a market value for that. There's a market out there eventually. But I mean, to the point where are there too many CDs right now that are so far out there? It's oversaturated the market, even 20, 30 years from now.
There's a good possibility that yeah, there's too many out there and it's not going to be worth any money.
Mm-hmm.
But you also got to think over the years how many of those are going to get damaged, how many of them are going to break, how many people are going to actually want them. You know, it's all statistics.
It is. It is. The market is like the stock market. It goes up and down. A
And
supply and demand.
that's honestly why I don't collect anything because I don't know if it's going to be worth it in 10, 15, 20 years.
Right. Right. What about
And
this?
if it's not worth it, then I just lost money buying something that I'm only going to collect until it makes me more money, and who knows when that's going to be.
But see, that's the thing too. It's like the people currently doing Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It has a time and place. It's skyrocketed to the point because GameStop and all them were saying, okay, we're gonna put some of this towards Bitcoin, etc., etc. So it was like huge, like a month and a half ago. Now it's like, so it's like
Yeah.
I don't want to say a fad because a fad would last longer than that,
Yeah.
but I
A fad
mean,
would be 90s butterfly clips.
there you go. Or those spinners.
The fidget spinners.
Those little spinner, yeah, the fidget spinners, and then there was those little point or those little like I forgot what the hell they things were called. They're like little disc things that you throw, and they would hit each other and they would bounce or flip or whatever it was. That was kind of a fad
The
too.
only thing I can think of when you say that is Beyblade.
Mm,
Is that what you're talking about?
no, this was probably like 2000 or something.
Or are you talking about the little like cardboard discs?
You would throw it and slap it and it would make a noise and then it would like trump the other car or the other thing, or it was kind of like little metallic discs, and you'd throw it and it would flip or spin and then fall, and I don't know, it was a fad too. I mean, there might be people doing that with CDs today. There might
Like
be.
hogs?
What is it?
Hogs? They were little. Is
Pogs, yeah.
that what you're talking about?
Now when I hear Pog, I think of obviously, Twitch.
Twitch.
Yeah,
But
Pog.
yeah,
Which I still don't know what the hell that is. What is a Pog?
I have no idea.
There you go. Politically, oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. Pog. Yeah, that's what they were
I
called, Pogs.
Yeah, you used to get the little discs and they had different like designs on them, and then you had these little like cylinder things with lids to collect them and put them in there.
Yeah, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it was. I remember. I briefly remember that. That was it came and it was huge and then disappeared. just like
Yeah.
the Beanie Babies, which are still on the market.
Beanie Babies still are, but they're nowhere near what they used to be.
And see, people like our gen, you know, we know what those are. These Gen Zs and I don't know what they call them now after Z. They go back to Alpha? Do they go back to A? Are they numbered? What are they?
I don't know.
But that's what it is. It's like I don't know which is which. I don't know where they go from here. But like maybe that's why they're reintroducing, like we talked last 2 hours ago, during the beginning of our broadcast, about how the reintroduction of like Mario and stuff. A lot of these people don't know what Sonic the Hedgehog was, but now because of the movies and stuff, of the people who are our gen, who are now having kids and stuff like this, are reintroducing their love of these things. It's
I mean,
just
my 5-year-old knows who Sonic the Hedgehog is. She knows
mhm,
Knuckles, Tails. She knows Mario and Luigi and Peach.
mhm.
Original characters from these games that I played growing up. And the thing is with everything going digital, she's not going to get to, sit down with me and play Mario Kart like that on
Right.
on a GameCube or on a Super Nintendo unless I go and shell out a lot of money
Mhm.
to get an older gen console
Mhm.
and get the cartridges or the GameCube discs were the mini discs. They
Hmm.
were the tiny discs. You don't get those just randomly.
That's true. They were little discs.
They were the small. They were
They
like
were like,
that
yeah,
big around.
like apple rings or something.
Yes.
I do recall those. Yeah, I do remember those. What about
Um. I mean, you don't see those all the time. I've wanted to get a GameCube for a while now because I've been wanting to play Mario Sunshine
right?
because I love that game. But with all these new gen consoles coming out,
Mhm.
you know, that's one skyrocketing the prices of what little bit of GameCubes are out there.
I
Two, it's making it hard to find them unless you go to like a collector or a like retro store and
right.
look for like I know we had one in the Lakeland Mall. I'm not sure what it was called, but it had movie memorabilia, games, all that from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and the early 2000s. And it was amazing. I used to love
Damn.
going to that place. I don't know if it's still there because I haven't been to that mall in a long time,
Right.
but I would love to get a GameCube. But
Right.
again, everything is going digital now.
Everything is going digital. I mean, there are things now that are digital that weren't even digital before. They just suddenly turned digital.
I mean,
You
next thing you know, there's going to be a hole in the desert full of
know, CDs.
CDs
I can see
or
that.
old consoles like the Atari,
Oh, that'd be
the the NES and the Super NES and GameCubes.
that would
We're
be
just
a.
gonna have a desert full of old shit.
But see, that's the thing too. Like I've learned over the last decade or so of these current generation is where they want everything digital. They do. They want everything now, right at this very effing second. I got to have the most expensive version of that thing now. I'll play with it for like 2 days and then that's it.
Yeah.
In other words, there's short attention span when it comes to things. So that way they want newer things more and more,
Mm.
which is depressing, to a degree, because they don't take what they have and keep it as value. Like if you have an
They
old,
don't appreciate it.
they don't appreciate exactly the core value of something. It's like if you had a 57 Chevy right now in your house, or if you had one, you would cherish that because not only because it was a beautiful car, the shape of it was amazing, and it ran really good. Today, the cars are shitty. Today they're just basically throwaways. And
Mm.
people today, that's what they want. They want throwaways. Like our PCs, we talked about this not too long ago on the air in regards to like PCs and how you can dig into them, take out one part, replace it
Mhm.
just like that. You can replace it no problem. Back in the old days with the old computers when they were just starting out with towers, it was very limited what you could do. But people today, it's like they don't have core value of anything. They don't want to keep what it is. Now they want something new, squeaky new every day, every day. It has to be something
Mhm.
new. And that's what's scary about these discs. I mean, you even have digital music. You can, like how when we stream our stuff,
Mhm.
we have, the Twitch has their own music player now, their own music where you can listen to it and play it and stuff like that.
Yep.
You don't have to go and buy CDs and become a DJ like you used to. Hell, even when I first did podcasts back in the day, I was able to run music that was, professional artists, they had they had CDs and stuff like that where you could actually play the music. I would have to mix everything together. I would have to run them in a program, certain genres, certain orders. That was it. But now everything's digital.
Kind of felt like that was a little jab at me and my EDM.
I mean, for me, like these new consoles and stuff, I honestly going to the PC versus going to console. I don't think I'll ever go back to console. I mean, I'll keep what I have now.
Yep.
Xbox, unless there's like a whole different one that comes out, like there's a brand new console
It's
that's
gotta
not.
be new and good and worth the money.
Well, yeah, that, but I mean, because everything that these consoles currently do, my PC can do, and if not faster.
Yep.
So what's the point of spending $400-500 on something like that where I can invest that
Into like
a CD
a
burner? I mean,
a bigger SSD drive.
right,
So you have more room to put more games.
more RAM or more, yeah. I mean, I have that stuff, and obviously all that stuff is digital because we mentioned we don't have CD players. I don't think your PC, brand new as it is, it doesn't have a
Hell no,
PC.
don't have a disk
It
drive.
doesn't have a disk drive. It's almost non-existent. When I first put mine together, I was like, shouldn't I have a disk drive or a CD player in this thing or something where I can put my music in? I can't.
Like I remember the first PC tower that I had. It had 2 disk drives and it had a floppy disk drive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it had I don't even think it had USB ports. I think it just had like the old microphone plug-in ports for your computer,
Mm.
your mouse and your keyboard.
You're right. You're right. Because in the
It
back of
wasn't
it,
even USBs.
you
It
had
was little holes
you
to
mm-hmm,
plug your stuff in.
you had to take the little screw. Like if I wanted to if I wanted to plug in my monitor into my back of my PC, it would have those little screws, and you would
Yeah,
have to
it had
push it
the
in.
fuck, what's it called? It was a wide blue thing, and it had little
Mm-hmm.
pins that you plug in, and then you had to screw it in to make
Yes.
sure it stayed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, my PC has one of those on the back of it,
Mine probably does too, and I
but
haven't
my
looked at it.
monitors don't.
Right. Yeah.
My monitors have just a little
They almost look like USBs.
HDMI port.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, mine look like little um they kind of look like DVD or DVD. They look like DVI ports or digital video
Yeah.
interface ports. But they look like USBs, but they're smaller. Like almost like and kind of like for your HD, but it's kind of weird
Yeah.
to explain. I forgot what it's called. But I had to
The
buy
display port
I had to buy specific cords for
adapter.
that. Yeah, I had to buy adapters for mine.
I had to buy an adapter, HDMI to DisplayPort
That's
adapter
exactly what I did. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Yep.
because it only had one HDMI port on
Hmm.
my tower, and then I was like, "Well, I have two monitors. How am I supposed to, you know?" But it's got three of those display ports,
Right.
so I can have a total of four monitors.
Right. An HDMI one and three ports. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would have to go and buy the adapter for it.
That's exactly what I have on mine. I have two right now. I have two monitors hooked to it, but I could hold four altogether. I could hold an HDMI and then plus the three on the
Display
motherboard itself.
ports.
Right. On
Yep.
or not the motherboard, I'm sorry, the graphics card can hold three on of its own,
Hmm.
which is exactly what I think my HDMI one that's actually on my graphics card right now is for my webcam. I think that's where I plugged my webcam in. So that way it's directly on the graphics card so I don't have to worry about anything
Hmm.
other than just the getting the perfect graphics of what I need. That's a
I
whole
mean,
different thingy. Amazing, isn't it? Like here we
it,
are with CDs now, they're non-existent, but Windows 95, Windows 98.
oh my
You
god.
do you remember all those Windows? They when you got a computer, you'd have to upgrade it or you'd have to install the Windows CD into them,
Oh god.
and that took forever. So that right there is
And then of course Windows didn't know what it wanted to do when you started downloading it. It either say, 30 minutes to an hour up to 10 years
now
and then shot back down.
when I had to buy, because now the if you build your own seed, if you build your own computer, 9 times out of 10 you are going to have to manually install Windows. It's not going to be pre-installed into it. So mine, I had to literally buy a copy of Windows 10, and instead of being a CD, it literally looked like a little USB, like one of those sticks
Mhm.
where you plug it into your USB port, and like a memory stick, basically exactly what it looked like. It was real small, but it held, and I still have it too in case I need it. It literally stuck into my USB port and it read it off that. And it's amazing because if you remember, CDs were the thing to go with Windows. Windows had to
Mhm.
have a CD with it. Just like that, just like antivirus software, just
Yep.
like with
That's all digital now. I have antivirus software on my computer and I did not have to buy a disc for it.
TurboTax, it had DVDs or CDs.
Mhm.
A lot of these things you can't really do much like you used to be able to, and I think that's the trend. I think it's going more digital now.
Oh yeah, it's definitely going more digital, like between music,
Mm-hmm.
games, pretty much everything or anything you can think of,
Mm-hmm.
there is a digital copy.
Yeah,
And soon, if you have a disc, it's going to be, a thing of the past. You're not going to need it anymore.
a definite thing of the past. But again, if you have a physical copy, it's good to have a copy of it yourself. If you want to keep it like that. But
I mean, also, like what happens, if the digital stuff goes down?
like
Having,
Xbox
having
did a few years ago.
having that physical copy, if your digital shit goes down, you can still play your game with that CD.
That's true. That's a very good point. You remember there were those so-called hackers that occurred on, I think, all the consoles. The Xbox got hit hard. It was right towards Christmas time, and I remember vividly because I was trying to log in so I could stream it,
Hmm.
and I couldn't stream anything because they would not log in. And I read on Twitter, I was like seeing all these tweets about people like, oh my god, Xbox got hacked and all this stuff, and then they're also hitting PlayStation,
Hmm.
but they really hit hard to the point where those, I forgot those people's names, and one with masks all came in and started saying that these people better stop doing this or they're going to come into action and all this stuff. It was kind of weird, but We're running out of time though, but this is a really good topic. I like that one. That was definitely a good one.
That was definitely one where we could talk for more than an hour.
I could definitely talk for more than an hour. An hour just went by too quickly like that, but
it really did.
It did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. Take care. Have a good afternoon. Bunny, thank you again.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem.
We'll see y'all next week.
Exactly. Take care, guys. Have a good evening.